saying. You've got Liz Truss saying that she would scrap the National Insurance Advice, which is meant to give more money to help the National Health Service. So it's a bit hard for the government to do anything right now because anything they do could be undone in just a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and there's a YouGov poll out in some of the papers as well saying that the majority of voters, not Conservative members, the majority of voters overall, actually support getting hold of inflation first, getting that down before then introducing tax cuts, which would seem to indicate, if you believe the poll, that the electorate is more in tune with what Rishi Sunak is saying.
Well, Liz Truss would counter that. She would say that her plan to cut taxes will also help when it comes to the cost of living and energy bill. She would say that she's doing two in one. There aren't that many economists who support her, but she does have some. People like Patrick Minford, who was a big advisor to Margaret Thatcher, has come out and backed Liz Truss and said her plan is the right way forward. So she would argue that she's still managing to do that as well as cutting taxes at the same time.
Where are we in terms of hustings and TV debates? Where are they off to next? And what might we see in terms of how that shifts the dial on conversation? Might we hear some more topics being brought up?
We've got a fair number of hustings still to go. It feels like this is a contest that keeps dragging on and on and on. And there are plenty more hustings still to happen. We're still to see them travel to Scotland, to Northern Ireland. We've got Manchester coming up. The thing with the hustings so far is it has largely been a repeat of the same arguments, the same catchphrases. If you're someone like me who watches virtually all of them, you hear almost the exact same speeches, maybe a few tweaks at the start to make it represent the audience. It will be interesting to hear if there is any deviation to respond to things such as the energy crisis or whether they do just keep sticking to that message.
Yeah. Dan, really good to talk to you. Thanks for your thoughts this morning. Thank you, Dan Falvey, there, Deputy Digital Political Editor, I should say, at the Daily Express.
Yeah, let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines now at 8 minutes past 6. And a truce between Israeli and Palestinian fighters in Gaza came into effect last night. It is holding, or it does seem to be still at this stage. That follows a weekend of violence. Egyptian negotiators have been liaising with both sides to try and de-escalate the conflict. The region's seen shelling from both sides in recent days, following a strike by Israeli forces on Friday against jihadist militants.
Detectives are urging the public to provide any information they may have about the disappearance of a missing student nurse. Awami Davies was last seen in the early hours of the 7th of July in West Croydon. 5 people have been arrested, 2 on suspicion of murder and 3 on suspicion of kidnap. 4 have been released on bail.
Britain is bracing for another heatwave this week, in fact, that could last longer than last month's record-breaking hot spell. The Met Office says temperatures won't hit the highs of 40 degrees as before, but could reach up to 35 Celsius.
Just coming up to 10 minutes past 6, a new report has claimed that some families could be £1,600 a year worse off as inflation and cuts to universal credit continue to hurt the most vulnerable in the country. The report from former PM Gordon Brown says that the current support measures being offered by the government fall far short of what is currently needed.
Well, speaking to us this morning is the personal finance expert, Gemma Godfrey. Very good morning to you. Gemma, thank you for joining us. Look, this is a really difficult time for everybody. And I suppose now, whilst the sun is shining and perhaps we're not as dependent on a lot of our heating and our bills aren't as high as they could be, would be a good time to make sure, as much as is humanly possible, we get our house in order.
Yeah, because I think the big problem with this is that a lot of people aren't going to be used to this environment. People have been used to prices remaining low, interest rates being low. And what we're seeing now is that food prices are going up, energy prices are going up, transport prices are going up. And now, as of last week, with the interest rate being higher, debt's getting more expensive as well. So it's a really good time to make sure that people are budgeting as much as possible. It's more important than ever to go through bank statements, to look for those little things that people can do just to save a little bit of money. Because as we go into the winter, in October, we're likely to see another increase in the energy price cap, as well as in January as well. So it's just going to get harder and harder, just at the point when people are going to be using more and more energy and spending more money.
Increasingly, though, Gemma, I speak to a lot of people when I'm out and about reporting, and they tell me, look, I've done everything I can. I have been through my bank statements. I have trimmed back where I can. I've cut back on my shopping bill. We've cancelled those Netflix subscriptions. You know, we're doing everything we can. There's not much left to trim.
Yeah. So what's happening is that there are millions of families that are just fighting on all fronts, and absolutely they're going to be choosing in the winter whether to keep their house warm or to feed their family. It's a horrendous time for many, and at times like this, it's really important to speak up. So again, something that's interesting, that's a bit different, is that up until this point, a lot of people, it's about putting your head in the sand, not really kind of tackling these problems and hoping that they'll go away, but actually. The reason why it's so important to speak up now is that there are things that suppliers can do. So, for example, there are things like mortgage holidays that are being offered by banks if people can't keep up with their mortgage. And with utility suppliers, the regulator has said that suppliers must offer plans, like payment plans, that are affordable. So again, there are things about utility holidays or allowing people to pay less, but maybe for a lot longer. Same thing with car leases. And the reason it's so important to speak up is that falling into an unarranged overdraft, late payment fees, or going into debt is going to get more and more expensive. And then a lot of people will fall into that and not be able to come out. So actually speaking up may be able to save people's finances as well.
Gemma, stay where you are, if you don't mind. We want to bring in a GB News listener and viewer, get some thoughts from him, and we will come back to you. Ian Fox joins us now from Leicester. You've been on the programme before, Ian. Good to see you again. Good morning to you.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Trust me, the pleasure is all ours. Look, we've heard so much, haven't we, in recent months about the ongoing concerns about the cost of living crisis, but to hear a former Prime Minister say, Parliament should be recalled in the middle of August. We should be having daily emergency COBRA meetings to tackle this problem. Do you feel reassured by that or alarmed?
I just think he's an alarmist. It's Gordon Brown, for God's sake. Let's be honest. He's caused a great deal of the problems during his time in office, and he certainly didn't do anything that's led anyone to be able to say, "Oh, well done, Gordon. What you did was fantastic." How many more COBRA meetings do we need to have?
So Ian, you think COBRA meetings and recalling Parliament are overdoing it?
Oh, there's far too much of it. Let's have a little bit of resilience. This is Britain. This is the UK. We're not afraid or worried. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but in my lifetime, I've been through far worse in terms of inflation. In the 80s, 20-odd%. Big boo-hoo there, I can tell you. People were really, really concerned. And the big difference I see between now and then is in the 80s, there weren't any jobs. There were no jobs for people to go to. Vast swathes of industry being cut down and there was nowhere for them to go. But now, it's not perfect, but at least there are now more jobs available than there are vacancies.
Yeah, but Ian, don't you think a lot of people who are struggling already have jobs, and we're not even talking about people in low-paid jobs. We're talking about people in normally decent, well-paying jobs. They're really struggling out there. So the fact there are other jobs out there, they'll say, well, that's not going to help us.
But I'm going to say, why are they? Because I'm on benefits. I live in a council house. I pay council rent, and I have got to manage. There isn't a choice for me. I can't go on strike. I've got to just knuckle down, trim the fat, and be grateful for the good times that I've had, and be grateful for all the government, and not just the Conservative, but the Labour one as well. All the people that have made it possible for me to have a life of sorts now. There's a lot to be grateful for, for all the hard-working people in this country. It's hard being on benefits, rest assured. It ain't no easy trip. And the people that I live with, my neighbours here on the council estate that I live on, it's just hard.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do?
Well, it's a fair point, Ian. And look, we'll come back to you because I want to get some thoughts from you on the ongoing leadership contest. But I want to also bring in Gemma Godfrey, who will have been listening to all of that. And Gemma, I wonder if you think there is a sense of British resilience, the sort that we're hearing from Ian there, that will get us through what's inevitably going to be difficult times. I mean, predictions of 15 months of recession to come, inflation rising, interest rates have gone up. I mean, it is a bleak outlook.
It is very bleak, and absolutely, it's fantastic to hear, having a stiff upper lip. But I do also find that there are families who are struggling so much. I mean, I've heard calls of people that have asked, is it going to be cheaper for them to stay at home to save on the transport, so the petrol to get to their office, or going to the office to save on all the heating bills if they're working from home? Really, people are on the edge at the moment. And, in terms of what the government's doing, they're doing this Help for Household scheme. It's on the website where a lot of supermarkets has a lot of the deals available, and some supermarkets are saying, feed your family for £5, allow your kids to, have a meal for £1 or eat for free in a cafe. It has become incredibly tough for so many people. Help with phone bills, help with other things as well. So keeping an eye on that website, I think, is going to be really important for people. They're also going to get a £400 payment towards their energy bill coming towards the winter, but none of that's really going to help when people's energy bills are going up as much as they are. So, yeah, resilience is fantastic, but there are lots of families, especially, hardworking parents, that are looking after kids and are worried about how to feed them. And, I mean, schools are even talking about cutting back on school meals. So I think it is a very, very tough time, and it is going to get tough.
Jim, we're going to talk to Ian in a minute about get his thoughts on the Conservative leadership contest. I was just wondering what you made about both candidates' policies when it comes to helping with the cost of living.
Well, it's interesting because I think anything that's starting to get favour, the other candidate kind of comes in with as well. So in terms of the difference between them, it's getting, less and less, but obviously the gap between them is getting wider and wider. And I think this is one of the key issues, is how are they going to look after families? And you've heard some of them come out with, let's do tax cuts, but it really is about people that are on the breadline that are going to need some support. We saw, previously during coronavirus, furlough and other measures come out that hadn't been talked of before, and we haven't really heard about that just yet. So,
okay,
it's concerning.
Yeah, Gemma Godfrey, a typically diplomatic answer there, but thank you so much for contributing to all of that. I want to bring in Ian Fox. I could see you nodding at times and shaking your heads at others. What did you make of that when it comes to the pledges that we've heard from both candidates in the last few weeks?
Well, they're utterly ridiculous. They're not realistic, are they? And that's one of my my problems with the whole thing at this particular moment in time. We need a politician who's going to be honest. And again, it doesn't matter whether that's a Conservative politician or a Labour one. I want to see somebody turning around and telling the British people what they already know in their hearts. It's not going to be easy. Nobody's pretending that it is. And can I just say, I totally agree with Gemma that everybody should do as much as they can to avoid getting themselves into debt. That is a very slippery slope, and again, because of where I live, the people I know, etc., it's very sad, and it can be disastrous, and wherever possible, they should try and avoid it. But as I say, life isn't easy, and that's sad.
And Ian, you're. I mean, just tell us about your Conservative Party membership. You're not going to renew it. Why is that?
Oh gosh, no. I voted for Boris on the basis. I joined the party because Boris was there. I voted for the Conservatives because I wanted to see a more optimistic view of this country. Don't get me wrong, realistic is very important, can't have any of that starry-eyed boosterism, can we, trotting around. But I wanted to see somebody who's got a vision, somebody's going to inspire me. And think about it. There you two are right now, sat there. You know, they haven't picked you to present this programme because you sit there looking like, you know, a depressed cod every morning.
I don't know.
You say that, Ian.
You should have seen us at 5 to 6 this morning comparing our war stories of lack of coffee and sleep and all the rest of it. But as you were,
But that's life, isn't it? And it's you know, they put you on air and they picked you because you're cheerful. You know, we don't want to, you know, grind. It's blimey. That's the last thing I want to wake up to first thing in the morning is more doom and gloom. And if you think about it, sadly, over the last the last couple of years, you know, there's been the pandemic meeting every evening, you know, where we're all going to die at 5 o'clock every night, you know, and now it's all energy and it's the war and there's so many things. Have a look around. There's plenty of good things going on in life that we can focus on. And yeah, be careful, be sensible. But hey, you know, cheer up. We're still here.
OK. Ian Fox banging the drum for, well, not quite clear-eyed realism or starry-eyed boosterism, something in the middle.
It's about it's about being realistic and making sure that we have somebody who's going to turn around and say, this is my vision for the future. This is where I am going to take you. And we, being the electoral lemmings that we are, will invariably choose to follow the one that offers the best picture.
And on that note, Ian, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much for speaking to us this morning. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, Ian Fox.
And thank you again to Gemma Godfrey as well. Look, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to be talking about holiday homes. Are they damaging coastal communities? We'll be focusing in on Cornwall and hearing more about the residents themselves and their issues when we come back. But first, your Monday morning forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board, feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine, feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Oh, 6:26.
Hello.
There we were talking about time checks all the way through the advert.
I know,
thought you were taking it away.
No, well, it's just because literally says time check
does.
there, so I was saying I should just say time check, but that means it is.
I was also blinded by this email. We'll come on to what's in the programme in just a second, but Sean has got in touch. She says, despite Rishi and Liz, it's always good to sit with a morning cuppa and watch GB News. Lastly, Paul, will you do Strictly, please?
No, because I can't stand it. I know it's not very politically correct to say you don't like Strictly Come Dancing, but I can't stand it.
What makes me laugh, because Ian was saying they didn't pick you because you were miserable and grumpy, and then I thought, oh, if only they knew.
Well, exactly. But luckily, 4 shots of caffeine in, I'm much perkier now.
Yeah, and with the time check at 6:27, let's give you a little rundown of what's coming up.
Yeah, coming up at 6:45, so in around about 15 minutes' time, our reporter Ed Crawford could be on your doorstep, if you're in Suffolk, that is, talking to what matters to you most. But before that...
In the next hour, Dr. Sarah is here with the latest news on monkeypox. The World Health Organization have labelled it over the weekend a global emergency. Concerns it could become endemic. We'll be asking whether or not we should be worried about it.
Remember, you can join in any of our conversations by dropping us a line. We do love hearing from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk, or drop us a tweet at gbnews.
Right, go on.
Let's talk about holiday homes, shall we?
OK, yeah.
Yeah, calls are being made for new legislation to limit the number of second homes. This is in Cornwall. In some parts of the county, up to 60% are either second homes or holiday lets.
Cornish residents say it's forcing them out of their communities. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody went to meet one young musician who's determined to do something about it.
Meet Sam Richardson. He's lived in a small village on the north coast of Cornwall all his life. But his community is changing. Of the friends he grew up with, he's the only one left.
Second home, second home, second home. 2 more second homes up there around the corner. There's a new one being built up there. You can see them blasting out areas of the cliff.
It feels to Sam they're blasting out the very community itself. Almost half of the houses here are second homes. Where once Sam's friends lived and loved, empty windows now stare out at quietening streets. And here's the problem. People come down here on holiday. They see a gorgeous pub, they see a shop with gifts. They think, I know, I'll buy a house nearby. But then they come here 2 or 3 times a year. And before they know it, the pub's had to shut, and so's the shop.
But when the winter comes, so many of these places have got to close because they just can't pay the bills through the winter because there's not enough people here.
And with businesses disappearing and less homes to go round, the feeling is Cornwall is no longer for the Cornish.
It's the fact as well for me that they've had to leave to make way for second homes. For people that are, you know, living out of county. It's kind of, it almost destroys a lot of the living history that we still have here. It's quite heartbreaking.
Sam's written a song about it, and his voice speaks for people across the West Country, forced to migrate east. But it doesn't have to be this way. Sam wants councils to cap the number of second homes to give Cornish communities a fighting chance of survival. I put his idea to MP Steve Double. Steve has ideas too.
One of the ways is having some sort of licensing scheme so that the local authority can manage the number in any given area, or potentially looking at requiring change of use on planning.
Another option, increasing the amount of council tax due on second homes. Plans were in place, but last week they were kicked into the long grass. The government says it's in consultation to find a way out, but for Sam, talk is cheap.
I see government blaming local councils and councils blaming local government. We don't want blame, we want action. You know, we want actual, real news to make a difference. Because the reality is that people are struggling, and they're struggling more than they've ever struggled. I don't really care whose fault it is. I want a solution now.
Cornish people are angry. This second home was graffitied, allegedly by a pensioner. That anger is heating up like the August sun. But so's the problem, and neither looks to be cooling off anytime soon. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Yeah, if you're watching in Cornwall, do drop us a line about that report, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Oh, hey, you could be outside Cornwall with a second home there.
Equally.
Your views this morning, get in touch. Look, we're going to take another break. After that, we'll be going through your morning papers this morning. We're joined by Biggins and Emily Carver to go through that. See you in a sec.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV. On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Morning, let's bring you up to date at 6:34 on GB News Breakfast. A truce between Israeli and Palestinian fighters in Gaza came into effect last night following a weekend of violence. Egyptian negotiators have been liaising with both sides to de-escalate the conflict. The region has seen shelling from both sides in recent days following a strike by Israeli forces on Friday against jihadist militants.
Britain's bracing for another heatwave this week that could last longer than last month's record-breaking hot spell. Met Office says temperatures won't hit the highs of 40 degrees as before, but could reach up to 35 degrees Celsius.
Met Police has been found to have strip-searched hundreds of young people over a 2-year period, a figure that's been condemned by children's charities. Scotland Yard shows 650 10 to 17-year-olds were subjected to strip searches between 2018 and 2020. More than 95% were boys.
There's a new warning that NHS dentistry is at its tipping point after years of neglect that's been made worse by the pressures of the pandemic. British Dental Association's found the majority of NHS dental practices in the UK can't offer appointments to new adult patients. 91% of practices in England could not accept new patients, with the number rising to as high as 98% in the South West, the North West, and also in Yorkshire.
There you go. Let's go through the papers just very quickly. Want to wish Ariana a happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday, Ariana.
Happy 5th birthday, Ariana.
Oh, 5 years old.
Yeah, and also a big hello to Anya as well, who are watching at home with their parents.
Nice, like it.
Are these your children?
No.
Just check.
They're someone else's children, but they're wonderful people, yes. Yes. Do you want to wish them a happy birthday as well?
Yeah, happy birthday.
There you go. Happy
Lovely,
birthday from
yeah.
Christopher Biggins,
Lovely
the actor,
day.
joining us to go through the papers. Also, Emily Carver is here from Conservative Home. Morning, Emily.
Thank you for having me.
Right, where should we start?
Well, let's start with the front of the Times, Christopher Biggins,
Yes.
because this is an interesting poll that's been put together in collaboration with YouGov and the Times newspaper. And what have they found when it comes to Tory voters?
They're giving a warning to Truss over cost of living fears. I mean, everybody in this lead up to the leadership, they're all offering us anything we want, which is, of course, ridiculous because we won't get it. But they're saying get inflation down before cutting tax, the voters have urged, which is true. I mean, we're about to embark on some very depressing times.
Yeah.
And they're not helping at all, these two contestants for this role. I mean, I think it's just ridiculous what they're offering. You know, and I think they think nowadays we're not stupid. We know about inflation, about, you know, taxing, and, you know, where's this money coming from?
Nowadays, we're not stupid.
No.
People in the past. I mean, this is tricky, isn't it, for Truss, because she's obviously been saying that we can cut taxes now and get inflation under control at the same time, whereas Rishi's been, you know, more fiscally prudent, arguably, and said, no, now's not the time to cut taxes. What I would say is that it's been annoying me recently in the media that tax cuts have been presented as handouts, as if allowing us to keep a little bit more of our money is in some way a handout. And I do think that's a bit of a manipulation of language there. Mm-hmm. A handout is, well, redistributing wealth from one person to another. Cutting taxes is just allowing you to have some more of your money.
Are you saying that that's a portrayal by the media? Or because this is in relation to comments Penny Mordaunt made defending the sort of apparent U-turn from Liz Truss that she wouldn't give handouts to deal with the cost of living crisis, and Penny Mordaunt saying, well, actually, we'd just make sure people could hold on to their own money.
Yes, and it's sort of the two have been equated and they're not really the same. So that's just been annoying me.
Right.
Tax cuts aren't akin to benefit payments or welfare payments or, you know, the like.
But what do you make of this kind of backtracking by the Truss camp on handouts? Because it seems as though, with this cost of living crisis and the likes of Gordon Brown getting involved, calling for urgent action on this, as though it's going to be impossible just to solve the problems that are going to be in the next Prime Minister's inbox with tax cuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably more on the Truss camp in terms of that I would favour tax cuts over more and more handouts. So if you allow people to keep more of their own money, then that's the same exercise, really. That's the same outcome. People have more money to spend.
Except that the people who would benefit the most from tax cuts would be people who are paying taxes, but perhaps those that need the handouts the most would be the ones that are the poorest and most deprived.
Yeah, and that's why Rishi Sunak has, you know, created all these different, welfare payments, hundreds of pounds here and there. How far it goes when it comes to the winter, I don't know. But how much can we afford to hand out, I don't know either. Yeah.
I've got
it's all very difficult.
A great idea about the energy bills, which, of course, everybody is terrified of. I mean, nobody wants to go into this winter of discontent that we're about to go into. But my idea, I think, is quite simple. We simply don't pay it. And we get everybody, I don't know how we do it, but we get everybody...
Mass civil disobedience.
Yes, exactly. We say, no, we are not going to pay these bills. If you want to cut us off, fine. If you want to put us in prison, fine, but we are not going to pay it. And this is millions and millions of people saying this. Yeah. Because, you know...
Christopher, that is outrageous.
Yes. Why?
Also, the knock-on impact. If you don't pay your bills, then the energy companies, how are they going to supply us energy?
Well, but they're making billions of pounds, these energy companies.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to actually fact-check on that one. Yes, they've had very big profits this year. Previously, remember in 2020 when,
what a
oil and
shame.
gas was only $10 a barrel. It goes up and down.
Oh, it must have been terrible.
It goes up and down, Christopher.
I know.
But I do think a lot of people are just going to refuse, which will be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, I think people want to refuse, but they won't be able to
physically
pay it.
can't. Yeah, physically can't pay.
A lot of people are saying whoever the Conservative Party picks to be their leader, neither candidate has a policy that is going to do enough going forward.
I don't think they are. And all they're doing is telling us lies, which, of course, the politicians love to do, in order to get our vote. Well, of course, we don't have to vote for them yet.
But on the cuts v handouts, I think that at least Truss has been talking about scrapping some of those levies on our energy bills, which would go some way. I mean, it's not going to make up for, doubling prices.
Why can't they go further, though? That's why I don't understand. Why can't they be really bold and go, right, this is what the experts say we need, so this is how I'm going to find it?
Yeah.
I don't understand why they can't do that.
No, I agree.
Is it because it can't be done?
I think they're worried about not bringing in enough money into the Treasury to obviously pay for all our public services and all our needs, etc., etc. And, of course, they've been borrowing at the rate of knots. So they're worried about that. But
did you read reports over the weekend? It's not on our list, but it was about Spain and how they're tackling it. It's a slightly different issue, but trying to wean themselves off Russian oil and gas. And
that's right.
Putting a cap on air conditioning at 27 degrees during a heat wave, with often temperatures in the 40s, and in winter, a maximum heating temperature of 19 Celsius. And I did wonder, I mean, it's hugely controversial and unpopular in Spain as a law, but do you think these sorts of measures might end up being discussed over here in the UK as ways to try and...
It's not a bad idea.
Tackle the cost of living crisis. Maximum 19 Celsius. What temperature do you like your house in winter, for example? You don't know. I don't know. I don't know. In every room because I'm in a new build, so I'm quite obsessive in knowing about what temperature. I mean, I like it really toasty.
Yeah, so do I.
I probably shouldn't.
I like to walk around in my underwear.
Cold at night, warm in the day.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Right, moving on. Emily, migrant crisis in the Times.
Yes. Which is
the ongoing migrant crisis.
Page 10.
Matter.
I mean, it does seem to be getting worse and worse, ironically, since Priti Patel announced the Rwanda scheme. But this article in the Times essentially says that smugglers are dropping their prices, cutting their prices, so more and more people are getting on these boats. And this article does, I'm afraid to say, it does rather debunk the myth that all of the people crossing the Channel are asylum seekers. It's very clear from where people are coming from that it's people seeking a better life and thinking that they can have a better life in the UK for whatever reason. Apparently 4 in 10 of those crossing at the moment are from Albania. Albania obviously has a history of conflict, but at the moment it is, no less peaceful than many countries in the world, also Iran and so on. And the nice weather is also contributing, of course, to more and more people crossing the Channel. And, people will be watching at home thinking, surely something can be done about this. I mean, these people, from a moral perspective, these people are, risking their lives to cross over to here. In our case, we're spending millions and millions keeping these people in hotels and whatnot. So the next Prime Minister needs to get to grips with this because it's making a laughing stock of our borders, that's for sure.
But also, what about the smugglers? I mean, why aren't something being done about them? They're making a fortune. These poor people pay their life savings to these men.
Well, I do think the
women.
French are just happy to just sort of, wash their hands clean and go.
Yeah, both have said they're going to stick with the Rwanda plan, both candidates. Is that right?
I find that very odd, I have to say, but still, I suppose it's a...
Well, it's playing to the
popular.
membership, of course, remember,
Yeah,
not the
I suppose,
electorate.
yeah.
So.
I think the membership just wants something to be done, whether it's the Rwanda scheme or not. If the Rwanda scheme doesn't look like it's going to work, then we need another thing. The problem is that every time the government suggests something, all the charities, the Amnesty International, the lawyers, everyone says, no, this is against human rights, etc., etc. So it's almost impossible for the government to actually do anything because it seems this country is rather run by lawyers and the legal system more so than the government sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know what the answer is.
Rwanda has those marvellous gift shops too. I don't know why we're decrying going to Rwanda. You can get free gifts when you go there.
Free gifts? What kind of gifts?
Well, this lovely gift shop. You don't get anything. And it's all there waiting for you in these hotels.
What, Rwanda tourist stuff?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't Arsenal advertising tourism in Rwanda for the time on their shirts?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think they still are.
Yeah.
Rwanda Airways or
Yeah.
something. Anyway, moving on.
I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, we haven't got a solution to that. gbviews@gbnews.uk if you want to come up with a quick solution to the migrant crisis. Now, Christopher, restaurant woes.
I've got a solution to this. I mean, what is happening is the restaurant industry is complaining that they're losing money hand over fist. Well, one of the main problems is, because, interestingly, in London, the most famous restaurants, the most expensive restaurants, you can't get a table. I mean, they're absolutely full. And you go to a restaurant, and I go to restaurants a lot, but I've stopped going recently because they are so expensive. I mean, a Dover sole, £50, which I think is...
But what a Dover sole it was.
What a Dover sole. I mean, but it's a lot of money. Also, wines. Wines have gone.
The Dover sole probably was the most expensive thing on the menu, Christopher.
Was it?
It was.
Right, OK.
It was, but luckily I can share it with my partner, Neil. We can have half a Dover sole each, and it's plenty. But, you know, the wines are extortionate now.
Yeah. I mean, more than the food.
More than the food.
Combined, yeah.
We went to away for this weekend, and wines were proper prices in restaurants. And they were full, all the restaurants, you know, because I think the restaurants are thinking, we've had a terrible 2 years, let's make some money. I think they should forget that and go back to their proper pricing.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to them, they've got to put everything up because they're passing on the costs from running the restaurant, from the energy bill. And don't forget, a lot of restaurants, in fact, all businesses, are not covered by the price cap like we are at home.
No, that is true. And also, they're finding it very difficult to find staff.
Yeah, and that as well.
That's another problem. Yeah. I mean, you know, so a lot of restaurants are closing because they can't... I mean, the other day a restaurant rang up and said, I'm sorry, but we have to cancel tonight because we haven't got the staff.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible thing.
Although I would always rather that they did that than actually accept you and then make you sit around for ages. There's nothing worse than bad service. I'd rather not go.
No, you're right.
I really can't go with bad service. That makes me sound really... impatient, but looking at your dirty plates for ages and ages and ages, and it's not been great food anyway. It's quite infuriating. I'd rather not go.
I think it's good, though, to actually do things at home now, you know, cook at home.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the consequences of that are going to be pretty tough for these businesses. I was reading that we've had more insolvencies than ever before in a short period of time. So many small businesses are just going under.
It's almost like there's a recession on them.
Almost like there is a recession coming. I'm worried about, is unemployment at some point going to go up? Because at the moment, people at least have jobs. At what point does recession then mean all these businesses going under? I mean, I'm sure some viewers have got businesses that are struggling.
Yeah. So many zombie businesses, though, that probably shouldn't have been in existence. Lots of arguments about survival of the fittest at the moment in terms of the business model. And so many businesses, I've had friends, and just not really making any money. But OK, look, we've kind of talked about shorter showers and things like that. So let's talk about the fire risk, Emily, in the Sun. It's on their front, and this is fire chiefs warning against these barbecues. Is this the sort of disposable barbecues, or is this just all barbecues?
Both.
Right.
So they're warning about barbecues and bonfires in your garden. And they're also warning about those little disposable ones that people sometimes use in the park when they're not allowed, or at home. Apparently M&S, they're no longer selling those disposable barbecues because of fears over fires, wildfires, etc., etc. But I guess this is a real risk. Is this the nanny state gone mad? I don't know. That we did see fires earlier in the heat
that
wave.
is not the nanny state.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is probably just sensible. But I do think people should be able to decide if they have a barbecue at home.
Yeah.
But the problem with these disposable trays is that often teenagers and young people take them into the park, leave them to sort of, you know, cool down, and of course they could catch onto dry grass. So I think people need to exercise a bit of responsibility.
Yeah, not have them,
and not do anything too mad.
Awful barbecues. I hate them.
What, the disposable ones?
I know.
Or any barbecue?
Any barbecue.
Any barbecue?
Any barbecue.
What is it you don't like about it?
In fact, the food is never cooked properly. It's, you know, it's a lot of ego.
Is that the barbecue's fault, or is that the person operating the barbecue?
Well, it's everybody's fault.
A lot of ego with the
barbecue. A lot of ego? To be fair,
it's a man's ego.
Look at me to stand there with my barbecue.
There's no ego in London's top restaurants, though.
No, of course not.
Yeah, exactly,
No, but I mean, you know, these men who are half naked there, standing there.
Sounds wonderful.
What barbecues are you going to? With their Dover sole on the barbecue.
freshly caught.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, half each.
Well, there we
Half
go.
each.
There'll be no naked barbecues this summer, apparently.
That would help.
These fire chiefs are,
Far too hot.
Yeah,
Look,
right.
we're going to leave that there on that note, that lovely note. And we'll have more from Biggids and Emily in about 7:30 thereabouts.
Oh, dear. Right, it is 10 to 7. Let's bring you up to date with other things that are happening this morning. Detectives urging the public to provide any information they may have about the disappearance of a missing student nurse. This is Oemi Davies. She was last seen in the early hours of the 7th of July in West Croydon. 5 people have been arrested, 2 on suspicion of murder and 3 on suspicion of kidnap. 4 have been released on bail.
The Met Police has been found to have strip-searched hundreds of young people over a 2-year period, a figure that's been condemned by some children's charities. Scotland Yard shows 650 10 to 17-year-olds were subjected to strip searches between 2018 and 2020.
School grades are expected to drop this summer and next after student SAT exams for the first time since 2019. The government says few schools and colleges will get better results than in 2021 when teachers awarded grades due to the pandemic. Education Minister Will Quince said the return to sitting examinations would make sure grades maintain their value.
Now it's time for On Your Doorstep.
I wish we had like a little on your doorstep.
Like a sing-song.
A sing-song,
Every
yeah.
time we do it this morning, how about you sing along for us?
Yeah, very cheesy. OK, next time I'll do that. And I'm sure that our reporter Ed Crawford, who is in Suffolk this morning, would very much appreciate me singing over the top of that sting. Isn't that right, Ed? Whereabouts are you?
A sing-song would be fantastic. And yes, today, it's early morning, it's on your doorstep, and today I'm in Great Barton in Suffolk. Now, on your doorstep, we like to go around and speak to people about stories that matter to them. And that's why I've come to this family-run business, the Gadd Brothers. They are tree surgeons and landscape gardeners, and they have been in business for 13 years. So let's see if we can find Mr. Gadd. James, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
James, I have to ask you, a lot of tree surgeons, I've been doing my research, a lot of tree surgeons are complaining about fuel prices. You guys are specialists, you're professionals, you do the big jobs, you do the small jobs, and you go all over. So fuel's a big part of your business. What kind of thing are you seeing?
Yeah, it's obviously a massive part of our business, and I think, you know, anyone, whether you're a business owner or not, is really feeling the pinch, dare I say it, with rising fuel costs. As you say, we travel quite a bit for work. We do a lot in surrounding counties as well, so into Cambridge. So yeah, our fuel bill obviously now, some days paying over £2 a litre, is sort of adding a bit of a sting to the day when everyone fills up first thing on a Monday. And you know, it's seen our fuel prices increase by sort of 25%. So yeah, massive hit for small businesses, well, and big businesses alike, to be fair.
So that's definitely cutting into your profit. And I have to ask, James, you know, material costs, like I know a lot of people who are in the building trade and they're telling me material costs are spiralling. So with you guys especially as well, you know, you're pricing jobs 6 months ago, and I assume that the prices change. How are you finding that? So let's say you've priced a job 6 months ago. What are you finding the reality is now when you go to actually do the job?
Yeah, so obviously it's difficult. You know, you're always trying to plan ahead and foresee these price increases coming. Obviously, with the back of difficult few years for obvious reasons, you know, prices have gone up. You know, for us, certainly our landscaping projects, we can have sort of material costs of £300,000 per job. You know, a 10% increase in costs can really, you know, obviously you can't just suddenly relay that or add it onto the end price sort of thing. So it is difficult. It's also feeding into that as well is just supply chain. Materials that used to be stock items, you could, you know, next day deliveries, that sort of thing. Sometimes now we're finding that even suppliers don't know when they'll next see the next stock. So yeah, it's challenging times. But yeah, we're sort of holding our heads up, and yeah, you know, you plan as well as you can to foresee that. So.
And you've got a plan quite extensively, because you guys also do Chelsea Garden Show and all the big shows around the country, don't you?
Yeah, so the flower show, so we're fortunate to be involved with and build gardens there. So that's the sort of type of scale of garden that we're sort of undertaking. You know, those projects, they're planned some of the years ahead to get plant stock and so on. So you're trying to keep up all of that, all the planning, but then also try and foresee these price increases and so on. So yeah, it's definitely a challenging industry, that's for sure.
It is a challenging industry, and I can see just behind us some of your guys are getting ready for the day. You're loading up the equipment. It's a beautiful day at the moment. Yeah. It must be a bit challenging come winter.
Yeah, winter time is a different story. Days like today, everyone always says, "Oh, it must be lovely to work outside." It is. Obviously, the two extremes, like a couple of weeks ago, 40-degree heat. Obviously, we do our best to work around it and plan jobs that that can still be done, and then obviously the other end of the spectrum is middle of winter and cold days, dark mornings, dark nights, rain. So unfortunately jobs have got to be done, and dare I say it's take the rough with the smooth and crack on. So
that's a nice positive attitude. I will let you get on with your day because I can see the guys are quite eager. They've got a cup of coffee, they're loading the chainsaws, getting ready. So we're going to hand back to the studio, and next time looking forward to that sing-song.
Thanks, Ed.
I thought you'd forgotten.
A cup of coffee and some chainsaws sounds slightly alarming, but I'm sure it's all under perfect control. Thank you so much for that. A little bit of the world that I don't really know, Suffolk, so it's nice. Doorstep, you get a little tour of the country as well. This time of year, everywhere looks so gorgeous.
Yeah, it does. Fantastic, and good to see a tree surgeon there because tree surgeons always branching out. Right, coming up, Dr. Sarah's here with the... Sorry, they've probably heard all those jokes, so it's a good job I'm not doing on your doorstep. Yeah. Right, what should we talk about next?
Well, we're going to take a quick break. We'll have all the latest news, the top stories of the day. We'll also be hearing from Dr. Sarah. She's going to be bringing us all the latest on the possible dangers of monkeypox and the problems of trying to get your hands on a vaccine. That's after the break. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board. Feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine. Feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The Tory leadership race continues to heat up with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak clashing over how best to handle the cost of living crisis. And now a former PM has waded in.
Good morning. It's just after 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 8th of August. You're very welcome to Breakfast on GB News with Paul Hawkins and Isabel Webster. Here's what's leading the news this morning.
Liz Truss has pledged to immediately cut taxes if she wins the race for number 10 and plans to tackle the cost of living crisis by reversing the national insurance rise. Meanwhile, the former Chancellor is calling for inflation to be brought under control before taxes are cut and has pledged billions more to help struggling families.
The former Prime Minister Gordon Brown's called for a Cobra emergency committee to sit in permanent session to tackle the cost of living crisis.
This comes as a new report suggests that the current government's support doesn't go far enough, with some families up to £1,600 a year worse off.
Plus, we'll be on your doorstep this morning speaking to you about the issues that matter the most. We've been in Suffolk so far this morning talking to a tree surgeon. Find out who we're talking to a little bit later on in the programme.
Yep, and don't forget you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews, and do not forget about the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone is talking about.
Our top story this morning, we're saying with less than 4 weeks left in the race to number 10, or you could say another 4 weeks still to go of this.
Yes.
Whatever your view is, the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak is still battling Liz Truss. He's been criticising the Foreign Secretary for her plans to immediately cut taxes as opposed, as we know, to dealing with inflation before taxes are lowered.
Yeah, as campaigns and hustings remain ongoing, the two candidates vying to replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister continue to clash over their plans on how to restore the UK economy.
Liz Truss insists that tax cuts via an emergency budget and not handouts would help families with spiralling fuel bills this winter.
However, Mr Sunak says adding more borrowed money to the economy could make inflation worse and that the British people deserved, in his words, clear-eyed realism and not starry-eyed boosterism.
Well, let's get some more on all of this from the Deputy Digital Political Editor at the Daily Express, Dan Falvey. Very warm welcome back to you, Dan. It's quite a good slogan, that, in terms of its catchiness from Rishi Sunak, this argument for clear-eyed realism versus starry-eyed boosterism. The trouble is, boosterism was kind of like the hallmark of Boris Johnson, and the Tory membership are all grieving for him, aren't they?
Well, yes, it's rather interesting, isn't it? It's very much a little bit of a dig at his former boss. He's spent, the leadership campaign saying, actually, Boris Johnson did a great job in lots of ways. There are just some issues that I disagree with him on. But this slogan is very much taking a massive dig at the way Boris Johnson ran his entire government.
So the question is, will that resonate with his current electorate, the Tory party membership? And if the polls are to be believed, not really.
Well, I think the Tory party members won't care so much about taking a hit at Boris Johnson if they think they're going to have their bills lowered in one way or another. That's what the voters want right now. The Tory party members want to see something done about the current energy crisis. They want to see lower taxes, they want to see energy bills coming down, and currently I don't think either the candidate is offering exactly what people want.
Yeah, also one of Rishi Sunak's other policies is that he wants kids to be compulsorily taught maths and science, I think it is, until they're 18. How's that going to go down with grassroots members?
So he set out English and maths till the age of 18 for part of a new English baccalaureate, as he's calling it. Now, the interesting thing is lots of parents right now are worried about the current school kids who have missed out on 2 years in classrooms due to the COVID pandemic. Now, a plan came out that said that around £15 billion was needed in order to help them catch up. And when Rishi Sunak was Chancellor, he refused to put all of that money into it. So him now coming out with grand policies on education, I think there'll be a lot of members who are parents or grandparents will be thinking, well, hold on a minute, can we get top of the problem right now, which is the last 2 years, before we start talking about wider reform?
OK. Meanwhile, Liz Truss, according to the Sunak camp anyway, has been accused of another U-turn after her one last week on regional pay boards, this time in relation to sort of hints she made on Friday about the need to perhaps do more when it comes to handouts to try and deal with rising interest rates and this sort of cataclysmic increase in interest rates from the Bank of England on Thursday. But she's had to backtrack a bit on all of that.
Liz Truss has said that she wants to reverse the national insurance rise. Originally, the plan was to do that next year. She's now talking about bringing that right forward in order to help with the current crisis. You're right, Rishi Sunak's camp saying, well, hold on a minute, you've therefore changed what you're doing because this wasn't going to happen anytime soon. But interestingly, Rishi Sunak has spent the last several weeks saying he wasn't going to say what he was going to do to help with energy bills himself, has now come out and said, actually, I'd be giving everyone more great big payouts. So both of them, I think, are guilty of saying one thing and then changing according to the circumstances.
Yeah, has she said how she's going to pay for this? Because she was talking about using the £30 billion of fiscal headroom. If the Bank of England's forecasts from last week are correct, that fiscal headroom disappears.
Liz Truss has said that we need to take this far more like a war debt. This shouldn't be about trying to balance the books right now. You know, we can take this over a period of time. We need to get the economy moving and that will pay for itself going forward. Her view is you fix the current crisis, you get economic growth, you then get more money coming in, and in the next few years that will pay itself back. And therefore, don't look at balancing the books in the next 2 years, look at the next 10 years.
Yeah.
All of that in mind, of course, if she wants to look beyond the short term, is her electability at a general election. The Times and YouGov have done a poll which shows that what are the issues that matter to ordinary voters, not just the Tory membership. Interesting reading.
Yeah, absolutely. The YouGov poll shows that dealing with the cost of living crisis is more important than tax cuts. Liz Truss has done a great big pledge on tax cuts to the Tory members. She knows that's one of the things that they really want to see change. Now, she would argue, though, that her plan tackles both at once. She would argue that she can lower taxes and tackle the cost of living crisis both in one. So she would argue that, actually, her plan gets them both all sorted at the same time.
Yeah. Dan, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. Dan Felvey there, Deputy Digital Political Editor at the Daily Express.
Now, over 80 countries have reported cases of the viral disease monkeypox, with Brazil, Spain and India recently citing deaths.
As cases in England reach almost 3,000, LGBT groups and sexual health charities are urging the government to take tougher action as fears of Britain becoming an endemic grow.
Well, Dr. Sarah Kayat is here in the studio to tell us more about all of this. I was looking at the profile of patients that have been diagnosed with this in the UK, and it's typically average age 37-year-old male and usually gay chaps. That being said, this isn't a sexually transmitted infection, so just explain why at the moment it seems to be the LGBT community who's suffering the most with this.
So you're absolutely right. Anyone can catch it, but it tends to be gay or bisexual men. And it's because one of the ways that it's transmitted is through close contact. And whilst it's not a sexually transmitted infection per se, it can be spread through the close contact of sex.
OK, so that's why it's an increasing problem in that particular demographic. Yeah. The good news in all of this is that there have been long-established treatments for poxes, smallpoxes, which this is in the same family. But don't get too excited with the good news, because the bad news is that it's getting harder and harder to get your hands on one of these vaccines.
Yeah, the smallpox vaccine has been shown to be very effective in monkeypox, but the LGBTQ plus communities have asked for around 250,000 vaccines to be available for the communities, but at present, it sounds as though we've only got about half of those available.
And there's a warning here that it could become endemic. What's the difference between endemic and a pandemic?
OK, so we've got epidemic, pandemic and endemic. Epidemic is a disease that occurs in a population, community, location. When it spreads to several countries or continents, it becomes pandemic. It's endemic if that something is a constant presence in a location. So, for example, malaria is endemic in parts of Africa.
Right.
So those are the three kind of definitions.
Right. So these warnings from LGBT plus groups are saying that, look, this is going to become endemic within our community.
Yeah.
If we don't get to grips with it.
So if it becomes endemic and we're about 50% short on the treatments, the reality is a lot of people are going to be getting this. And by all accounts, in many cases, quite painful virus to suffer with, not only sort of the typical shivers and things, but some nasty sort of symptoms as well.
So for most people, it is a mild illness. Of course, there are some fatalities that have occurred, but for most, it is mild. However, it can be disfiguring. It can be painful. It means days in isolation away from friends, family, and, you know, monetary issues because of financial losses from work.
Yeah. How confident are you with the authorities getting to grips with this?
So I do think we are a step ahead of, for example, our COVID pandemic because we have a vaccine. We just need to procure more of it, and I think that's our first step in making sure that we're protecting our community.
And how can we get our hands on more? Because, I mean, I was reading reports this weekend of lines of men queuing up to try and get this for hours and hours, 3-4 hours in some cases, and some being turned away. What's being done to try and sort that out?
That's the problem. I don't know what's happening behind scenes. I'm assuming the government are procuring more through manufacturers, through pharmaceuticals. Yeah. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're a doctor at the end of the day. That's not your job.
Well, yeah,
Fair enough.
I've got colleagues who are stressed, you know, people that are in sexual health clinics
Yeah,
who are saying that they don't have the ability of it.
But are patients still coming to you and asking you about it? Is it they are?
I have been having, patients asking about it.
How worried are they? How do those conversations go is what I'm thinking.
Well, you know what? I think a lot of people are aware that this is fairly mild, but they are also aware of the stigmatising issues surrounding it all. And so I think people just want to get the vaccine so that they can avoid these horrible conversations that do then have to go on to happen.
It's funny, isn't it, in the world of medicine, how certain names stick with certain illnesses. When you think of chickenpox, nobody's offended, but something about the term monkeypox that makes it sound particularly unpleasant. I do think that contributes to the taboo to say I've got monkeypox.
Yeah.
The World Health Organization, weren't they going to change the name of it? Or they were, did they not in the end?
Yeah, they haven't. I mean, you're quite right, because actually it's nothing really to do with monkeys. It was found in primates at one point, but it's found in lots of different animals, and it doesn't really add to it. I don't know if they're planning to change it. I think now it's pretty integral within media, so I'm not sure how changing it now would make much of a difference.
It was like, COVID and originated in bats, didn't it? We don't call it bat flu, or there was all the talk from Trump about, what was it, the Chinese
flu virus.
China flu virus. What's in a name? I suppose it is important in a way. Look, Dr. Sarah, always lovely to see you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. It is 12 minutes past 7, of course. Anything you see or hear on the programme this morning, we do love to hear from you. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'll go through some of your emails in a moment. First, though, at 12 minutes past 7...
A dentistry story for you, a warning that NHS dentists are at tipping point after years of neglect that's been made worse by the pressures of the pandemic. The British Dental Association's found the majority of NHS dental practices in the UK can't offer appointments to new adult patients. 91% of practices in England couldn't accept new patients, with the number rising to as high as nearly 100%, 98% in the southwest, the northwest and in Yorkshire.
Elsewhere this morning, the Met Police has been found to have strip-searched hundreds of young people over a 2-year period, a figure that's been condemned by children's charities. Scotland Yard shows 650 10 to 17-year-olds were subjected to strip searches between 2018 and 2020. More than 95% were boys.
School grades are expected to drop this summer and next after students sat exams for the first time since 2019. The government says few schools and colleges will get better results than in 2021 when teachers awarded grades due to the pandemic. The Education Minister, Will Quince, said the return to sitting examinations would make sure grades maintained their value.
Lots of you getting in touch with us this morning about second homes, because we've been running a report about second homes in Cornwall and also the cost of living crisis. Malcolm in Carlisle. Morning to you, Malcolm. Says some so-called vulnerable families need to realise that smartphones and Sky TV are not necessities.
Betty in Dorset says, why is Gordon Brown getting involved on the state of the economy? Was it not under his stewardship? Then a note was left for the incoming Chancellor saying there is no money left Fair point, Betty. Thanks for getting in touch.
And actually, John emailed us in earlier saying, why are we listening to Gordon Brown after the mess he got us in and which we were still in and which added to the crisis we are in now?
On second homes, Dee's got in touch. Thanks for your email, Dee. She said, sorry, it's locals who've happily sold their homes for premium in the first place. It's called a free market.
Mark in Norfolk, morning Mark, says we're here on the North Norfolk coast. Here we have thousands of holiday homes and luxury caravan lodge parks. But it has to be said they bring in lots of money all year round to an area that used to be very thin in the ground from early October to April.
And Cled says in Wales they've started increasing council tax across North Wales to try to stop the 10,000 homes used as second homes, whilst a housing crisis rumbles on with homelessness abounding. It is not just Cornwall, fair enough. And we also heard from Colin, who's in Medway in the Lake District, saying they looked at properties they wanted to make an offer. This was a friend who's trying to buy their shock. The Lake District has a policy that you must live in the area or be resident for at least 3 years.
Yeah, and just very quickly on the going back to the cost of living, John's been in touch with us this morning. Says, me and my family have a working family income of £22,000 a year. I'm disabled. I have a disabled child. The prices of products in the shops is unbelievable, and I'm having to start saving on my gas and electric meters for the winter. I'm dreading it, as are a lot of people. So we really do appreciate you getting in touch with us, John. Lots of people struggling at the moment, and will be struggling even more so throughout the winter. It's going to be difficult.
Yeah. Keep those thoughts coming in. We'll try and read out as many of them as we can. We're going to take a quick break. After that, it's going to be Paul Squared. Paul Hawkins here. We'll be joined by Paul Coit, and he'll have all the latest in the fallout of the Premier League. I've been dying to say that.
You have, yeah.
Including the latest disaster for Manchester United. But first of all, here's your Monday morning forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board, feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine, feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
You're watching GB News Breakfast. Really good to have you with us this morning. It is 7:20. We're going to go through the weekend sport in just a moment. I know you're excited.
I'm so excited.
But before that, still to come on today's programme.
At 7:45, our reporter Ed Crawford is going to be out and about on your doorstep this morning. He's in Suffolk. I've never been there, and it looks beautiful.
What, you've never been to anywhere in Suffolk? Oh,
yeah.
Suffolk is amazing.
So I'm being educated this morning, talking about the issues there that matter most.
Yeah, and coming up in the next hour, Real Housewives of Cheshire star Nicole Seeley and her husband Joe will be here to talk about the menopause and how they are surviving, quote-unquote, the change.
Yeah, because it doesn't just affect the woman in the relationship, it does also affect the man, I'm pretty sure. Let us know your thoughts on all of these subjects. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
Right, do your maths joke now.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Now it's Paul Coit joining Paul Hawkins for some Paul squared action.
I like it.
Sorry.
I like
right,
it. Good.
Okay.
Right, okay.
This is why I don't
Was
normally
that
get
you or was
involved
that your
in the
script?
sport.
Now, come on. Don't opt out now. Don't opt out. You're staying.
I'm in it.
I quite liked it.
Because the
I know
thing
you
is-
liked it, but I know you're very proud of it.
But you know what? While I was away and I saw that Izzy had tweeted about the women's Euros and how excited that now you become really into football. So how are we going? Because I was really excited. I didn't want, I was expecting you were going to ride the crest of a wave, and I don't want you to disappear. I want you to be in there.
Allergic to bandwagons. I'm physically allergic to them.
There's no bandwagon involved.
There was a bandwagon come about Tuesday when a lot of the papers were still running Lioness stories on the front page, and I just went off it.
Right, fine.
It's an uphill struggle, but I'm still climbing the hill of enthusiasm for football.
I'm not actually here to be talking about sport, to be broadcasting about what's going on. My actual main reason I'm here is just to get Isabel involved a little bit more in football. That's the reason I'm here. I've been paid by the FA to bring you along for the ride. So that's what it's all going to be.
Spurs game with you.
That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do.
Can we all come to a Spurs game?
Absolutely, because the thing is, the way that the Premier League works, and over the years, with top-level football, you never have a league table until at least 3 or 4 games in. Because it doesn't make sense. Because you play one game, 3 points, there's no point having a league table. Although, over this weekend, I've decided to change my mind because
Spurs are top.
Are top of the league.
Yes,
so
I thought that's where that was
I've
going.
decided that it's very good that we see the Premier League table as much as possible because Tottenham are absolutely
Right, so Spurs were behind and they won. Let's just go through this quickly.
Okay.
Leicester and Brentford drew. Man U won. West Ham lost to City.
No, Man U lost. See, the thing is, Manchester United lost at home to Brighton.
Right.
Manchester. So Eric Ten Hag, who's the new manager that's come in. So
Yes,
they've had
that's an error, isn't it? Manchester United 2, Brighton 1. It was
That's
actually
absolutely an error.
Right, let's just
That's
change that
absolutely
there.
an error. Yeah, I mean,
it's a Man U fan.
No, I'll tell you what it was. That was probably done for Eamonn, just in case he was in to make him feel better.
Yeah, of course.
But we know very well. So Manchester United lost. Eric Ten Hag, and we've spoken about him a lot, the new Dutch manager that's come in, and this is the guy that so many people are excited about. I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't know whether this is going to work. He's only worked in the Eredivisie, which is the Dutch league, which is where he was the manager of Ajax. He's come in, first game under his belt, and loses to Brighton. And it was a very bad performance by Manchester United.
Yeah, who would have thought that having a team with most of the players from last season would mean you're still rubbish?
There you go. It's all about, the thing is, it's about momentum.
Yeah.
The momentum carries over. I was asking someone over the weekend, I was saying, well, does momentum carry over when you've got a team that's playing really well and they end the season and then they've got, a month or 2 months off? Can you carry momentum then into the next season? The answer is yes. So it seems that Spurs have done that, carried their momentum, but unfortunately for Manchester United, they've carried their momentum, which is not good, into the new season. So we'll have to worry about how Eamonn is when he comes back.
Yeah, well, he's back tomorrow, should point out.
OK, he's taking the day off. It's morning because of what happened over Manchester United.
He's on holiday. He's coming back from Northern Ireland and
Fine,
back tomorrow. But look, let's talk about Brentford, because they have had this amazing fight back, I'm told.
Yeah, no, come on, you're there.
It says here.
You know very well. Brentford...
I didn't... Was it good?
It was. Leicester were 2-0 up against Brentford. And Brentford, a lot of people's tips that they're not... they're going to struggle. It's like the difficult second album. It's the second season. It's the same thing, Everything's great. First season, second season in the Premier League, expected to struggle. But Leicester 2-0 up, sort of like they took their foot off the gas, and then Brentford came back. And West Ham lost 2-0 to Manchester City. And all this talk is about Erling Haaland. Now, Erling Haaland, who is the wunderkind of football. And
he's Norwegian, he's very good, scores lots of goals.
Absolutely, came over from...
Big signing.
Absolutely, he's got into Manchester City, and people are thinking, is he going to work? I mean, the guy was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, scored 2 goals.
I'm told he's one of those, like, having read a few pieces about him growing up, apparently he's very good at all sports, and very good at handball and...
Yeah.
And just, yeah.
Most sports people are, though when you see them and you speak to them, they're always good at every sport. I mean, you remember the kids at school, when you're doing the pick, and if it's in foot, they're always going to be the ones that are involved in everything. Were you one of those?
I was about midway through the pick, so not too bad.
Right, OK.
Well, yeah, wasn't last.
When they did the journalism picks, then you were first
Then I was last.
OK, all right.
And there's also...
Yes, now this is where my interest is peaked.
Yes.
Commonwealth Games. All coming to an end today. I'm going to miss it. It's become sort of soundtrack to my life. And the weather's been glorious. The stadiums look fantastic. Brits have been doing so well.
Also, I should mention that I just think when it comes to sport, that Britain, we lead the way when it comes to spectators and people loving sport.
Yeah.
The Commonwealth Games has been completely packed out. When we had the World Championships here years ago, in 2017, completely sold out. If there's a sporting event, and look at the Euros, we love a sporting event. Often they go elsewhere. They had the World Championships in America, and that was...
Yeah, and can I add to that, the Commonwealth Games and the World Athletics Championships aren't... They can be difficult tournaments and competitions to market.
Yeah.
They're not the big ones like the World Cup, the Euros, the Olympics. And so the fact we've packed stadiums is good.
Always happens here, always happens here. So the Commonwealth Games has been terrific. Birmingham have done amazingly well. Yesterday, it was a great day for the Scots. I mean, it really was. And Laura Muir, who won the 1,500 metres, is a fantastic runner. Alicia McColgan, she came second in the 10,000 metres. But when it came to the big story for me was the 4x400 metres women relay. Chris Akabusi, of course, a very good friend of ours, world champion in that event. So anyway, the women went off and it looked very good, great start. Then came to the last leg and it was Jessie Knight was the final leg going against Kira Constantine from Canada. Kira catches her. There we are. Now, just have a look there. This is her crossing the line. Now, it didn't... And there's a little worry there, a concern, because the way that Jessie Knight crossed the line, it's a new way of dipping. And then when you see runners dip, they push their chest forward, arms back. What she did, she had the baton in her hand, threw the baton out, arm out, and it was almost like she was pushing forward. And it was like, when you look at it, think, no, she hasn't won it. But that momentum pushed her over the line into the gold medal place. Celebrations, they're all looking at the screen thinking, have we won? And then it was like, yes, England, I should say. Yes, England have won. All the excitement, fantastic. And then... a little bit later, then there was a disqualification because from the first handover, when they hand the baton over, they ran over the lane. It was just a foot, went over into the other lane, disqualified, which then worked out well for Scotland because Scotland ended up getting bronze. But heartbreaking because it was one of those great races. So exciting, amazing finish, but then a DQ. So very
disappointing. Who's top of the table? Medal table?
It was Australia. But the thing is, though, we can look at that, but then if you want to combine as a Great Britain side, then we're
top.
That's the way of it.
And England beat Australia in the women's
hockey, lost in the men's hockey, but in the women's hockey they beat.
That's a big deal.
It was a big deal because Australia are a great hockey side. First time women, although Great Britain have won it in the Olympics before, England have never won the gold in the women's hockey before, so that was a great time as well.
Brilliant, guys.
I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss it. Still got stuff to go to. There's table tennis today, so if you're clinging on.
Yeah.
A bit of table tennis to win with today.
Yeah.
There you go.
Love it. Paul, thank you.
Pleasure.
Cheers, Paul. Thank you very much. It is 7:29. Coming up, we'll be going through your Monday morning papers with Emily Carver and Christopher Beans right after this.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
OK, it's 7:31. Let's bring you up to date on the latest headlines this morning. And a truce between Israeli and Palestinian fighters in Gaza has come into effect and has held so far this morning following a weekend of violence. Egyptian negotiators have been liaising with both sides to try and de-escalate the conflict. The region's seen shelling from both sides in recent days, following a strike by Israeli forces on Friday against jihadist militants.
Detectives are urging the public to provide any information they may have about the disappearance of a missing student nurse. Owami Davies was last seen in the early hours of the 7th of July in West Croydon. 5 people have been arrested, 2 on suspicion of murder and 3 on suspicion of kidnap. 4 have been released on bail.
Britain's bracing for another heatwave this week that could last longer than last month's record-breaking hot spell. The Met Office says temperatures won't hit as high as 40 degrees, but could reach up to 35 Celsius.
It's just gone half past 11.
Another drink?
It's just gone 7:30. Let's go through the papers now with Christopher Beans and Emily Carver. Good to have you both with us. Emily, unsurprisingly, the cost of living in the Mirror.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
Sorry, guys at home.
No.
Gordon Brown, the former Prime Minister and Chancellor, has made an intervention in the Mirror. He's saying that because the fuel and energy crisis, the cost of living crisis, is so bad and so imminent and, top of the agenda, that the government really should be in permanent session. That's COBRA. The government's Disaster Emergency Committee should be in session throughout the summer.
Is it not a disaster, though, if people are having to make horrible choices, like whether they feed the dog or themselves?
Yeah, I think there is... I mean, he makes a good point. It does seem during the summer, particularly with this leadership contest not coming to a head till September, we do seem to be in a state of limbo. And, of course, government is still working, but decisions can't really be made. The Prime Minister is on his honeymoon. I'm not sure if he's back yet. I don't know where the other ministers are. We've got Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak of course, battling it out, so they're only interested in their own hustings.
And by the way, on that, are also going to be exhausted when they actually take over the keys to number 10 on the 6th of September. I can't understand how they're going to dive headlong into all of these problems, having not had a minute of respite.
Well, that's very true. And all their advisors and things, because presumably they'll keep their teams that they've got at the moment and bring them into number 10 with them. So they're all going to need a holiday. But, of course, they won't be able to have a holiday.
They should make a decision now about...
That's what I think.
It's ridiculous.
So, you agree with Gordon Brown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, make a decision because we're in a crisis.
Yeah. And I think
we need a Prime Minister.
That's what's interesting about the way this has been covered on the Mirror. It's the person that's getting everyone's backs up, certainly in the right-wing press anyway.
Yeah.
But actually, his message, a lot of people would probably agree with, as you do.
I think so, without any doubt. I mean, you know, he's right. But, I mean, it's a situation where I can't think why governments or politicians would want to go away during this time. Because this is the time where they can actually do something or try and do something to help us out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, of course, the argument is if they need a holiday and if they have families and things, this is the period where they can take one. But yes, I think
they shouldn't have
think we should have more noticeable government at this point in time. But I mean, Gordon Brown has said some sensible things. He says even if Boris Johnson is on holiday, his deputies should be negotiating to buy new oil and gas supplies from other countries. And that's the crucial point. We have a gas supply crisis. We need to be going around the world trying to get more.
Yeah.
If we're not going to dig it up out of the ground here or, you know, explore more in the North Sea, we need to be going to different countries and saying, please, give us some.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Christopher, after you've had your Dover sole, according to a study in the Mail, you should have a 2-minute walk to help fight diabetes.
Yeah, well, I suffer from type 2 diabetes, which a lot of people do. And I think what they're saying, and of course they're always coming up with new ways to fight certain problems you have. And I think it's a bit obvious to say you should have a walk for at least 2 minutes after a meal. Well, of course, exercise is the thing. I mean, you know, to eat less and to exercise is the secret of losing weight and perhaps not losing your diabetes problem.
But a 2-minute walk seems literally a quick fix.
Yeah, I mean, a 2-minute walk
We can all manage that, can't we?
I think so, going to the lavatory, you know, after your meal. But, I mean, I think that it's, you know, I think you need to do a bit more than 2 minutes. I mean, I think it's, you know, 20 minutes at least.
Yeah.
I don't do it, but, I mean, I should do it, but I think it's a very good idea.
You don't always feel like a walk, though, if you've eaten too much.
Yeah, you want to go to bed.
Which I have done in the past.
I mean, it's like when I used to go for Christmas up in Scotland with my family, and they're very active up there. And it was always, as soon as Christmas lunch is over, right, that's it, come on, let's all go for a walk through the hail and snowstorm. But it probably is a good thing to do, and it means you stop eating for a bit, right? Which is crucial when you've probably eaten about 10,000 calories that day.
I just always remember someone telling me the way that sumo wrestlers train, and that is to eat a huge meal and then go to sleep. And so whenever I've done that on Christmas Day, I'm like, I'm going to turn into a sumo wrestler. So I really do and I genuinely feel better if I'm moving after I've had a big meal.
Yeah, it does help, but I have to say, I'm of an age where I just like to...
Like a sumo wrestler.
No, just have a little sleep, just after you've eaten.
I agree. The sleep is lovely.
Yeah.
We should do more of that, I think. We should follow Europe and have siestas.
Yeah.
They're wonderful things.
Yeah,
We're going to need them this week.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this is true, yeah, 35 degrees on the way, apparently.
I'm off to Italy today.
Are you? Where are you off to?
I'm going to Tuscany.
Oh, beautiful.
And interestingly enough, we're going on a train.
All the way to
All the
Tuscany.
way. We're going to Paris, and then we go to Italy, and then we go down to Chiusi, where we're going to be met by friends and stay with them.
I've done that trip down to Italy on the
Is it
train.
good fun?
It's great.
Yeah.
You whistle down through France on the TGV, and then you head through the Dolomites, which is spectacular, on the French-Italian border.
We're so looking forward to it.
Absolutely beautiful. I'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
What killed you?
Actually, Emily, you want to talk about teeth. I should just... and about dentists. But I just want to read you this from James, who says on how hard it is to get a dentist. I moved from Bournemouth to Exeter area 3 years ago, and I'm unable to find an NHS dentist for my children aged 9 and 12. I rang the NHS helpline, and the nearest NHS dentist they could offer me was in Southampton, a 3-hour drive away.
Oh, my God.
I'm a Conservative voter and disgusted.
Well, apparently the South West is one of the worst affected places
Yeah, for getting a dentist.
for getting a dentist.
NHS dentist.
But it's everywhere.
Yeah.
9 in 10 NHS dentists refuse to take new patients. I know you've been running this in your bulletins. It seems to be a cocktail of problems. You've got dentists finding that they can be paid more, presumably, and have better working conditions with private practice, so they're moving in their hordes. Then you've got, obviously, backlog from the pandemic. People probably didn't think that teeth was their first priority during that period. And now, maybe, perhaps people haven't gone for an appointment for years, so more people are coming. Seems that demand is just skyrocketing, and I don't know if this is an issue with funding, if it's an issue with how it's managed, I don't know, but if you can't find a dentist in large swathes of the country, I'm not really sure what you're supposed to do. Apparently people are taking to DIY dentistry.
No,
We've heard horror stories in the last few weeks, haven't we? About people ripping out their own teeth, having a shot of whiskey or whatever, and then just...
And a piece of string on the tooth and the door handle.
The door handle.
Yeah.
Do people actually do that?
Well, I find it the best way of doing it.
Fair enough. And look at your teeth. Not done you any harm? Or...
No, they're marvellous at my age. It's quite good.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how it is difficult, I think, to find a dentist.
Yeah.
It's one of those problems. I think it's something we have to sort of resolve.
Yeah, it's just shortage of everything.
Talking to your lovely doctor who was on earlier about the national health, and I was saying how wonderful it is. And, how great, if you really need looking after, they are marvellous, but it's the in-between.
Well, also in the papers, and maybe we'll get it in the next paper review, but discussions about epidurals for pregnant women being in short supply, and the thought of women having to go through childbirth without being able to get adequate pain relief is like grinding your teeth yourself. It's
I had an epidural when
nightmare stuff.
On my knee, when I had a new knee. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I loved my epidural.
They're
I could top it up myself.
And they also, you don't have any after effects, do you? There's no after effects.
Well, not immediately.
Just the baby, I suppose.
Just the baby, yeah.
Christopher, cheese. The Heatwave in the Times to make French cheese whey more pricey.
Well, what's happened is...
Whey, I see.
Yeah, you see.
How did I miss that?
Very good.
How do you smell whey?
Yeah. WHO.
French and Swiss cheeses are becoming more and more expensive because there's a huge milk shortage because the cows and the sheep can't get water. To drink.
See.
So
Okay.
there's the problem. And
now they're really, as far as I'm concerned, the crisis has just got real with the water shortage.
The
cows aren't being able to get enough water.
Exactly, which is terrifying thought. Yeah. And of course, then they're putting up the prices of all these cheeses. Another excuse to charge more. But the poor cows and the poor... there's a lovely picture in the Times of lovely cows.
Oh, there's a cheese float coming. Oh, look at that.
Nice.
There's some gratuitous cheese action for you. Look at the way he carved that. Oh, lovely that was.
Beautifully, very sexy.
Doesn't look like French cheese, though. Is that French cheese?
That's cheddar, isn't it?
I think that's good British cheese. As nice as French cheese is, we do some good cheeses. There's that famous Liz Truss clip, isn't there?
Yeah.
Isn't there, about cheese? Yeah, that is disgusting.
Which we're growing everything here.
Yeah.
Cheese is just expensive anyway, isn't it? A block of cheddar.
Yeah.
£5.
Parmesan. That's hugely expensive. You get a nice piece of
it. It is good,
I love
though.
Parmesan.
We'll have to ration our usage.
It is.
That's what we seem to be telling.
Yeah,
Gordon Brown was saying we need to ration everything, so...
Yeah, it's not great. You need to string out your cheese more. Shark attack.
Yeah, Biggins, tell us about this on page 11 of The Sun.
Well, this is,
is this in the UK?
No, this is in the Bahamas. But it seems to be happening more and more. It's happening over here, down in Cornwall the other day, that poor girl who was attacked. And I don't know whether it's global warming that's doing this to the sharks, but they seem to be really having a feast. And this poor boy, and there's a shot of him stroking, I presume this is patting a shark during a tour before he was mauled on his leg. And you can see really badly his leg has been lots and lots of stitches around the knee area. And poor thing, it must have been terrible for him.
Well, lucky he's got his leg intact, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Much worse from shark attacks.
So I think it was all well's that end well, because he's stroking the shark now and he's made up.
Oh, I see. This after, is it, the shark?
Is it? Or I don't know.
I'm not sure. Well, he's very brave to, but, it is worrying. I worry about, like, for instance, jellyfish. I'm terrified of jellyfish.
Yeah. Well, they're becoming more and more common, aren't they?
But, you can eat them now.
Oh.
What?
You can make them
Is this
into...
part of the cost of living crisis?
Yeah, well, no, but you can. You can make them into chips.
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
What?
There are jellyfish chips.
There.
Is this to go with your Dover sole? Yeah?
No. This is... it's bizarre, isn't it? But they are saying we should eat more jellyfish because they're edible. And deep fry them and do all things. I know, I agree. I couldn't.
Oh, they're sort of ghostly, sort of otherworldly. I don't like
But when
them.
you get the bill, you get a real sting.
Very good.
Anyway, but I have to say, these sharks are called nurse sharks. Possibly the most that's a terrible name.
Yeah.
Called nurse
It's a
sharks.
nurse.
And they attack
Because
the
it
poor
sounds
boy.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I
Should be
met
called
many a
killer
nurse
shark.
who's a shark.
Yeah.
We're going to get emails from nurses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thanks,
No, I
We've got
love
time
you.
for one more story, and I think we'll end on a cheerful one. We all love our pets, don't we, in this country? Emily, this is in Times 2, and this is about how if you're a dog walker or a dog sitter, you're coining it in this summer.
Well, yeah, because there may be lots of people at home who are semi-retired or retired, and they're looking at the cost of living and they're thinking, oh, I need a little bit of money. It's time to be a dog sitter because apparently, well, we know that lots of people got pets during the lockdown. Apparently, it was 3.2 million households acquired a pet during the lockdown.
3.2, really?
Isn't that mad?
That's a lot.
Many of them,
Adorable.
Many of them will be dogs, of course. Anyway, this lady in this article, she's gone from charging people £40 to £60 a night, and the bookings still keep on coming. That's £420 a week for a week's dog sitting. She could do several dogs at one go, so then you're making quite a good wage.
That's pretty decent.
And my parents used to give their dog to a woman, and she didn't charge anything because basically she'd had dogs, but she couldn't cope with them passing away. So she decided that she'd just look after other people's dogs for a bit of cash. And it's quite a nice thing to do if you can handle it.
Yeah, and handling it, you've got to remember, you've got to handle all the...
Bits and pieces,
That's the only thing about multiple dogs.
I've got friends who've got kennels down in the country, and they have the dogs have their own little room, and they have a television. Because they say that they're so used to televisions in their own homes that when they go away...
They miss it.
They miss it. So they have a television, and then they have a little play area outside. It's fantastic.
Pampered pooches.
Pampered.
That's good.
PP.
There. Why isn't that the lead story this morning?
Mine went to a place called the Wag Club.
Oh.
Yeah, the Wag Club.
Sweet.
Colleen Rooney hasn't patented that name. But we'll leave it at that. Biggins and Emily will be back for us at about 8:30 thereabouts to go through the papers one last time. But for now, thank you both so
Pleasure.
much.
It is 7:47. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning. We've been talking about dentists. There's a new warning that NHS dentistry is at its tipping point after years of neglect that has been made worse by the pressures of the pandemic. This is from the British Dental Association, which found the majority of NHS dental practices in the UK can't offer appointments to new adult patients. 91% of practices in England could not accept new patients, with the number rising to as high as 98% in the South West, North West and Yorkshire.
The Met Police has been found to have strip-searched hundreds of young people over a 2-year period, a figure that's been condemned by children's charities. Scotland Yard shows 650 10 to 17-year-olds were subjected to strip searches between 2018 and 2020. More than 95% were boys.
Elsewhere this morning, school grades are expected to drop this summer and next after students sat exams for the first time since 2019. The government says few schools and colleges will get better results than in 2021 when teachers awarded grades due to the pandemic. Education Minister Will Quince said the return to sitting exams would make sure grades maintain their value.
Now, a little bit earlier in the programme, Paul promised to sing along to the next little segment.
I just thought we could have some vocals to the sting.
We might just mute his microphone for a moment because it's now time for On Your Doorstep. Mute. Over to you.
Yeah, Ed Crawford is in Suffolk for us this morning. Ed, where are you exactly? Who are you? Oh, you're surrounded by lovely flowers there. What's happening where you are?
That's it. I am in a beautiful sunflower field on the Ruffham Estate in Suffolk. Now, there's no doors to be knocking here, but there's a beautiful field. Now, this is a place where the public can come and pick sunflowers, and I've come here today to speak to a local farmer, Simon Edel. Hello, Simon. Good morning. How are you?
Morning, Ed. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Now, Simon, I have to ask, there's a beautiful sunflower field. Normally we see sunflowers that are about 6 foot high. These are about waist high at the moment. Can you tell me why that is? Is there challenging weather this year?
Yeah, it's all down to the weather, Ed. I mean, basically, we normally have about 650 millimetres worth of rainfall each year. And as a farm, we don't have any access to irrigation. All of our neighbours around us have access to irrigators and can actually artificially put rainfall onto their crops, but we can't. So yeah, normally we'd have our sunflowers about 6 foot tall, but this year we're running about 150 millimetres down from where we would normally be at this time of the year. So we're running on about half of what we would normally have, and as a consequence, they just grow a lot shorter.
Well, it's a bit of a shame in some respects, but in other ways, it's good because you can pop them in a vase on the kitchen table without having too much hassle. Now, I understand as well, as a farmer, you know, you're not just growing sunflowers, you're growing all sorts of crops, and you have to diversify and go with the times. How are you diversifying in the challenging times at the moment?
Yeah, so the Rougham estate is about 1,200 hectares, and the core part of our business is arable farming. Now, as arable farmers, we would sort of see our business sort of finances go up and down in huge peaks and troughs. And so what we've done over the years is we've diversified into lots of different income streams or non-farming enterprises. So things like houses, we sell Christmas trees, we have quite a large Christmas pop-up event sort of between October and December. We've gone into container storage, and then we've started doing sunflower, pick your own sunflower and pumpkins about 2 years ago, and just trying to engage with the public and earn money through that way to sort of create a much more sort of stable financial income stream.
Well, it's very Instagrammable, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but you know, there's swings set up with sunflowers, there's big chairs, so people can come here, they can take some cool pictures, they can get some sunflowers. I have to ask, it seems appropriate being in a field of sunflowers. A lot of people are saying that due to the conflict in Ukraine and global instability, supply chain issues, that for farmers, they're facing fertiliser prices and other things like that. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, as farmers, we've always had huge changes in our finances, whether that's commodity prices that we're selling our produce for, input prices, or sort of changes in government policies. We've always had to adapt over the years. But what we've seen from the conflict in Ukraine is a huge amount of change in a very, very short period of time. So things like our wheat price has significantly risen, that we're actually able to sell our wheat for, but we've also seen huge rises in red diesel, which we use to power all of our tractors. Our fertiliser costs have nearly tripled for what they were this time last year, and other inputs also have gone up at the same time. What it means is that things sort of balance out. So from a gross margin point of view, you know, we're probably still running at the same gross margin as what we were 12 months ago or 18 months ago, but the financial risk of growing those crops has significantly increased because of the cost of the inputs and going into growing that crop of wheat or crop of barley or whatever it would be.
Well, it's such an unstable world at the moment, and with difficult times ahead. But I understand, I'm very conscious of the time. You're getting ready to open the public. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So Rougham Estate, public can come down, pick sunflowers, take some cool pictures. Anything else?
Well, yeah, that's it. We're open for one more final week, so we're going to close on Sunday because normally we get about 4 weeks out of the sunflower bloom here, but because of the hot, dry weather, things are a lot shorter. But yeah, we're open every day this week, 10 till 5, and we encourage the public to come down and pick as many sunflowers as they possibly would like, and then they can take that bit of sunshine home with them at the end of the day too.
Wonderful. Well, we might hand back to the studio there and grab ourselves some quick Instagram pictures, aspiring influencers that we are. But we'll see you for more on your doorstep in an hour.
Thank you very much. Looks very beautiful. I do love a sunflower. It would look good in our studio. We like a yellow flower in here. Maybe you could bring us back.
Yeah, everyone loves sunflowers, don't they? Yep, big fans of sunflowers. It is 7:53. Calls are being made for new legislation to limit the number of second homes in Cornwall. In some parts of the county, up to 60% of properties are either second homes or holiday lets. Cornish residents say it's forcing them out of their communities.
Well, our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody went to meet one young musician who's determined to do something about it.
Meet Sam Richardson. He's lived in a small village on the north coast of Cornwall all his life. But his community is changing. Of the friends he grew up with, He's the only one left.
Second home, second home, second home. 2 more second homes up there around the corner. There's a new one being built up there. You can see them blasting out areas of the cliff.
It feels to Sam they're blasting out the very community itself. Almost half of the houses here are second homes. Where once Sam's friends lived and loved, empty windows now stare out at quietening streets. And here's the problem. People come down here on holiday. They see a gorgeous pub, they see a shop with gifts. They think, I know, I'll buy a house nearby. But then they come here 2 or 3 times a year. And before they know it, the pub's had to shut, and so's the shop.
But when the winter comes, so many of these places have got to close because they just can't pay the bills through the winter because there's not enough people here.
And with businesses disappearing and less homes to go round, the feeling is Cornwall is no longer for the Cornish.
It's the fact as well for me that they've had to leave to make way for second homes for people that are, you know, living out of county. It's kind of, it almost destroys a lot of the living history that we still have here. It's quite heartbreaking.
Sam's written a song about it, and his voice speaks for people across the West Country, forced to migrate east. But it doesn't have to be this way. Sam wants councils to cap the number of second homes to give Cornish communities a fighting chance of survival. I put his idea to MP Steve Double. Steve has ideas too.
One of the ways is having some sort of licensing scheme so that the local authority can manage the number in any given area, or potentially looking at requiring change of use on planning.
Another option, increasing the amount of council tax due on second homes. Plans were in place, but last week they were kicked into the long grass. The government says it's in consultation to find a way out, but for Sam, talk is cheap.
I see government blaming local councils and councils blaming local government. We don't want blame, we want action. You know, we want actual, real moves to make a difference. Because the reality is that people are struggling, and they're struggling more than they've ever struggled. I don't really care whose fault it is. I want a solution now.
Cornish people are angry. This second home was graffitied, allegedly by a pensioner. That anger is heating up like the August sun. But so's the problem, and neither looks to be cooling off anytime soon. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Right, stay with us after the break. Kate Hardcastle will be joining us for Money Monday. She'll be telling us how to boost your finances with unwanted electronics. But first, here's your Monday forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board, feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine, feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The Conservative Party leadership race continues to heat up, with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak clashing over how best to handle the cost of living crisis. And now, a former Prime Minister is having his say.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Monday, the 8th of August. This is Breakfast on GB News with Paul Hawkins and Isabel Webster. Here is what is leading the news this morning.
Liz Truss has pledged to immediately cut taxes if she wins the race for number 10 and plans to tackle the cost of living crisis by reversing the national insurance rise. Meanwhile, the former Chancellor is calling for inflation to be brought under control before taxes are cut and has pledged billions more to help struggling families.
Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown has called for a Cobra emergency committee to sit in permanent session to tackle the cost of living crisis.
It's Money Monday. Kate Hardcastle will be telling us how we can all boost our finances by using our unwanted tech.
Plus, we'll be on your doorstep this morning speaking to you about the issues that matter most to you.
And remember, we love to hear from you throughout the programme. Get involved in the conversations. Email us gbviews@gbnews.uk or you can tweet us at gbnews.
And do not forget, you can subscribe to the GB News channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone is talking about.
So our top story this hour, with less than 4 weeks left in the race to number 10, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak's criticised Foreign Secretary Liz Truss's plans to immediately cut taxes as opposed to dealing with inflation before taxes are lowered.
As campaigns and hustings remain ongoing, the two candidates vying to replace Boris Johnson as Prime Minister continue to clash over their plans to restore the UK economy.
Liz Truss insists that tax cuts via an emergency budget and not handouts would help families with spiralling fuel bills this winter.
However, Rishi Sunak says adding more borrowed money to the economy could make inflation worse and that the British people deserved, in his words, clear-eyed realism and not starry-eyed boosterism.
Well, let's get the thoughts on all of this of diary editor at The Spectator, James Hill, a regular to the programme. Good morning to you, James. I mean, not many fresh arguments coming through at this stage. At the moment, though, it's a question of, what's cutting through the most, I suppose, with the membership, all importantly, at the moment.
Yes, and I think that's the important thing to note here is that the Tory membership obviously has a different set of priorities necessarily to the overall country as a whole. I was looking at some polling in the Times this morning and they said that tax cuts was a priority for 34% of Tory members compared to 17% of average voters. And that rises to, I think, 44% of Truss voters as well. So the argument on which is being fought in the Conservative Party right now is slightly different, I think, in terms of the priorities and what they think is best for the country than an average poll might suggest.
Yeah, it's just politics, isn't it? basically?
I think that it's difficult to sort of cut through because so many pledges are being made. There was a Sunday Times a good data hub yesterday when they counted up how many pledges are being made, and there's an average of 2.6 a day by both candidates, and I think that's 4 times as many as there were in the 2019 contest between Boris and Jeremy Hunt. Yeah, it's difficult to try and keep track of them all because every different area and billions been promised for each different area. So, yeah, and obviously Liz Truss, according to most polls, seems to have about a sort of sizable 20, 30-point lead. So I think this is some of what Rishi Sunak's been saying over the weekend is a bid to try and make up some of that lost ground.
How possible is that over the next 4 weeks? And where are we at with the ballots, these all-important ballots coming through letterboxes?
Well, there was some security concerns, which was why they were prompted. Originally, it was going to be the case that you could change your vote throughout online. But after talking to the National Cyber Security Centre, which works with GCHQ, they then delayed that. So the ballots only went out around Wednesday, Thursday last week. So they've now landed on doormats. Most people are sort of operating on the assumption that half the electorate will return their votes as soon as they get them, pretty soon. And given that about 90% of Tory members seem to have made up their minds, according to polls, it would suggest that, given so many of them prefer Liz Truss, there's not much time or for Rishi Sunak to really move the dial on any of this.
Yeah. So do you think he's going to go all the way? All the way to September in the race?
Well, he signed a pledge for the 1922 because obviously back in 2016, Andrea Leadsom dropped out after that disastrous Times interview she gave. So it meant that the 1922 wanted to ensure there was going to be a proper contest this time. Both candidates would go all the way down to members actually got their vote. So they're going to, I think he's going to fight on to the end. And there's signs that he makes headway on one issue or another. But I think 4 weeks to go, Truss is still very much the lead.
How are you finding watching this contest? Each hustings, each debate, are you finding it a bit repetitive or are you savouring every minute?
A bit of both, really. I think that each hustings has different arguments drawn out of it. There's always something you can pick upon. But I think that it has been set by a number of key issues, and I'm not sure how many minds are really being changed as a result of all these hustings.
It's interesting, some topics seem to have been avoided altogether, and the sort of fixation on taxation, which will only really benefit those who pay a lot of tax, let's be frank, seems to have dominated. But they're off to Darlington tomorrow for their next, is it the next husting? Or
correct, yeah.
Yeah, and that hopefully will bring up the issue of levelling up again?
Sure, yes, I think it will. And the Red Wall, of course, because the Tories have to make a choice at this election. What is the electoral coalition they want to fight the next general election on? And Darlington, of course, is key. Rishi Sunak has won 4 out of the 6 Tory MPs' endorsements there. He's obviously got his Richmond constituency and has done a lot to invest. When he was at the Treasury, he moved a lot of the Treasury resources to Darlington. So it'll be a really interesting case about whether people there will be making concerns which are different from the rest of the country, and whether it'll be a kind of precursor to debates about how they can keep the Red Wall back in 2024.
Yeah.
And is there a legitimate concern about the kind of workload that the two prime ministerial hopefuls are under at the moment? I was reading some stats about Rishi Sunak over the weekend that he'd done 18 solo events, 21 events for members. He'd met over 7,000 people. At this rate, with 4 more weeks to go, the pair of them are going to be on the floor. And at that point, they've got this huge inbox. I mean, we've got Gordon Brown, a former Prime Minister, calling for them to recall Parliament already. We've got the Health Secretary saying that the NHS is going to go into a meltdown unless we do something now. We've got ongoing problems with Taiwan. You name it. There's a lot going on for these exhausted and beleaguered potential leaders.
Of course, and Liz Truss looks likely to win. Her allies have suggested that there could be an emergency budget on the 21st of September. So she'd take office on September the 6th and then have to produce that in 15 days, as well as all the other issues that are outstanding as well. So, yes, I think whoever wins is going to have a phenomenal challenge. And frankly, I think that although there's a need for this contest to go ahead, there's a lot of issues waiting whoever wins.
James Heal, diary editor at The Spectator. Always good to get your thoughts. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Do let us know what you thought about what James had to say. GBviews at gbnews.uk. It is 8 minutes past 8. Kate Hardcastle joins us now for Money Monday and will be telling us how to boost your finances using unwanted electronic devices, Kate, is that right?
Well, look, every little helps, doesn't it? So it's about trying to find some ways, good morning, by the way, in which we can maybe go through the house, sell what we don't need, recycle what we perhaps can't sell, and get some extra cash. And I think at this time, that's pretty good advice.
Is there actually any value in some of our old electrics? Because I always imagine my clapped-out old laptop that sort of starts sounding like it needs crank to get going and overheating and, you know, blinks at me, probably is worth nothing.
Well, being honest about it, there are a lot of redundant electrics in all of our houses, and I think we've all got that drawer, haven't we? You know where all the cables are. I bet I could find it in your house. Yeah. And I think the main thing is that the good thing to do is get rid of the clutter. So recycling anything that's got a plug, a battery or a cable on can be recycled. So there's a brilliant website called Recycle Your Electrics. Go on there. There's some great information about deleting your data, Isabel. So if you are going to try and sell your laptop or any phone, that's a really important thing to do, particularly with the high tech crimes that we're seeing at the moment. But I think it's a great source of understanding where you can recycle those batteries too. Now, the value is, I think the best way to look at it is it's something you would buy. Put yourself in your buyer's shoes. Have a look on those resale websites. And don't just have a look at what's for sale. Have a look at the price that they've been sold for, which is just a filter on your right-hand side. And that means that items like, you know, maybe a mobile phone, etc., you could get £100 plus if it's in good nick and it's got some life left in it. If it is a laptop that needs winding up, that isn't going to suffice for anyone, probably the best thing to do is recycle it. But there are also trade-ins. Now, did you know from January of this year, if you buy a new electrical item, you have to be able to take the old one back to the retailer if you want.
Oh, I've seen them offer that, but I didn't know that was a legal requirement.
From January of this year, so you can still get rid of it and do the right thing. Because I know environment's perhaps not as on everyone's priority list right now, but it still helps with sustainability.
Sorry, it's a legal requirement if you buy a new laptop to take your old one in.
January of this year, not for a trade-in particularly, although a lot of brands do that, but just for you to know that it's going to get recycled sufficiently.
Just to clarify, is the requirement on the consumer to take their stuff in, or is it on the retailer to just offer that?
It's on the retailer to offer the ability to recycle any of the items, so you know that's done safely and securely. They might also be able to give you some advice about deleting that data too. But what we're now seeing is a lot of those organisations are wanting to get your business again, so they're offering trade-ins, and there's particularly something like these hair straighteners, about 40 quid you can get back on something like this to trade in for a new one.
Really?
So it's well worth looking into.
So where would you take something like that?
Straight to the manufacturer or where you perhaps bought it from, and a certain brand are offering £40 back on trade-ins for that now.
That's all right.
Decent, isn't it?
Because how much does a pair of one of them cost brand new?
Well, the brand we're talking about, it's over 100 quid.
Right, so that's a lot.
Up to £40 back is significant. It obviously depends on the model, what good condition it's in, etc. But all I'm saying is, go through what you've got, do the right thing anyway and recycle it, make sure it goes to the right place. But you could have up to £600, experts reckon, in electrics that you can resell in terms of value in your house right now. So it's just worth it.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. Yeah, I've got a Betamax video recorder. How much can I get a few quid for that?
I think the vintage antique market, you probably could, it could be a couple of quid. High value,
You're right, actually.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Well, that
someone recorded over the end of it with the news. Yeah, it's shocking.
I was just reading this stat. There are 12 million kettles not making tea right now, and on average there are 31 million idle laptops, and at least one idle laptop in every home in the UK.
And you know that they are, don't you? Those stats, you can really start to think about it and think, I'm guilty of that.
What about donations as well? Because, it's not that long ago during the pandemic, everybody was sort of emptying their drawers to make sure schools had enough tech. And it's something that I'm always mindful of, is, whether or not the local primary's got enough iPads and things for kids that need, extra help.
So 4 easy steps, I think. If you're thinking about doing this today, delete that data. You should just delete it. As soon as something becomes obsolete, just get rid of it. And if you need some instructions for that website, then sort it. Are you going to sell it? Are you going to donate it? Or actually, does it just need recycling? Once you've done that, if you're selling it, make sure you know what a good price is, what they're selling for, not actually what people have them listed for. And finally, do try and donate. And do
good advice. Yeah, I think the last thing the kids would want to see is my laptop.
Or Isabel's.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think anyone wants to see it.
Do you know why I won't get rid of it, though? It's got all my wedding photos on it, and I have got my wedding photos on a hard drive somewhere else, but I don't know where the hard drive is. So it's just like a sort of an attachment to my old tech. And I think we've all got those reasons, haven't we, to cling on to our old laptops that we just think, well, I'll just keep it just in case.
Do we use those retailers enough, though? There's loads of retailers that will happily help you with that, and they'll help you sort it out, and it doesn't cost anything. Make sure you get the cash back and the value.
Great advice, Kate. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Personal finance expert Kate Hardcastle there. It is 8:13. Let's bring you up to date with what else is happening this morning.
A truce between Israeli and Palestinian fighters in Gaza came into effect last night following a weekend of violence. Egyptian negotiators have been liaising with both sides to try and de-escalate the conflict. The region has seen shelling from both sides in recent days following a strike by Israeli forces on Friday against jihadist militants.
Detectives are urging the public to provide any information they may have about the disappearance of a missing student nurse. Awami Davies was last seen in the early hours of the 7th of July in West Croydon. 5 people have been arrested, 2 on suspicion of murder and 3 on suspicion of kidnap. 4 have been released on bail.
Britain is bracing for another heatwave this week that could last longer than last month's record-breaking hot spell. The Met Office says temperatures won't hit the highs of 40 degrees, but could be as high as 35 degrees Celsius.
Lots of you getting in touch with us this morning about the Tory leadership campaign. Mohammed says, can we have more control over where our taxes are spent? We can tick boxes to say whether we want our money to go to which cause. Less government wastage on useless causes we do not agree with. It would give the taxpayers more control. Brexit meant controlling our borders.
Lots of you getting in touch about holidays and ministers and MPs taking a break. Elizabeth says MPs deserve a holiday. Many of them have children. So when are they meant to take a holiday? After the official school holidays? And Mary says it's disgraceful that all the MPs all have holiday at the same time. The rest of the public service employees have to keep working. The NHS doesn't close. The police service and fire service doesn't close. Why do MPs do things differently? They are, after all, public service employees.
Yeah, I guess Parliament kind of mimics the school term, doesn't it? So they can only take holidays in certain parts of the year.
We're going to take a quick break. After that, the Real Housewives of Cheshire star Nicole Seeley is here. She's joined by her husband, talking about a very taboo subject. First of all, though, your forecast. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board. Feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine. Feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory,
twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Okay, it's 19 minutes past 8. Still to come on the programme this morning. At 8:45, our reporter Ed Crawford could be on your doorstep. He's out and about in Suffolk this morning talking about the top stories of the day.
And coming up in the next hour, Dom Littlewood is here to shed some light on the dangers of bad builders and rogue traders. Plus, he'll be telling us how to swerve those scammers.
Good advice. Stay in touch, get involved in all of our discussions. As always, email us, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet us at gbnews.
It's 20 past 8 tonight. ITV is releasing a two-part menopause special featuring stars from the reality show The Real Housewives of Cheshire. Nicole Seeley and her co-stars will reveal their menopause journey to viewers, including alternative treatments.
Well, Nicole and her husband, the former footballer Joe Seeley, are in the studio with us this morning. A very warm, if that's a good thing to say, warm welcome to the show. Look, it's so refreshing to see you come on as a couple because, look, we talk about the menopause on the show a lot. We've even talked to Seema Malhotra about this. But it affects marriages, doesn't it? It affects relationships and therefore it affects the man. And I don't want to make this about men, but...
Please.
Well, you dropped her in it, didn't you? You made her go public with all of her...
I did, yeah. I did. I mean, I put something on social media one day just as a bit of a joke, and it kicked off from there. And I realised that not many women actually feel supported by their husband is what come out of it. Most of the stuff I get messaged is, I wish my husband would listen to me.
And has that improved the way he is coping with you, or...?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're really lucky because I think through humour we've really sort of, fought our way through it. And for me, perimenopause was much more difficult.
Yeah.
But I thought that what was interesting was that women actually did say, I know that I'm being like it, but I also need to know how to engage with my husband or my partner. And that's what they were struggling with, weren't they? And this has really, really helped. For me, I say the irritability in perimenopausal, I think is really, really difficult.
Just explain, like someone like me, I am looking to the menopause in the future. I'm terrified. People talk about it all the time, and it's the fear of God into me. But what is the perimenopause, and how is that different from actual menopause? And at what point do women tend to get help in terms of with HRT and things?
Yeah. Well, I think it's different for everybody, and historically, I mean, we did a part in the series where we talk about, with the guys, what's the first thing you think about when you think about menopause? And I think it was Shane. He went, my mum. And so we went, what are you saying? He said, well, I'm thinking mature lady. So I think straight away women retract from that. They don't want to be seen as this old, frumpy, mature lady.
I think that is part of the problem. I think the past generations didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
So now it's wide in the open now, and it is about listening.
Yeah.
And working together. Like the humour side of it, for us, we've got a relationship where we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
Nothing's off the table.
Yeah.
So that helps. But if you have a closed relationship and suddenly this is happening and your husband's in the pub with it all the time, this is why men in the pub say, my wife's driving me mad.
But we also,
do you know?
But we also don't want, what we want to show is that women, which is why the hashtag hot mess is sort of the strap line, because you don't have to be unattractive just because you're in the menopause. And there are younger women that are going through it, which is scary. So being prepared, educating people. I think education, whether you're an employer, you need to make the guys in the office more educated of how to deal with the ladies.
Well, on that note, just to be clear, what's the difference between perimenopause and menopause?
So it's your body changing, basically. Perimenopausal is where your hormones are changing. So your mood swings are probably more relevant.
You're not one, you're not the other yet.
Yeah.
You're in the middle,
Right, okay.
and it's kind of
pre-menopause.
your levels are dropping, but other ones are coming up, and you're getting both symptoms.
Sounds really fun.
Yeah,
it wasn't great.
And on that, with HRT, that can help rectify that. But there is a problem with HRT shortage in the UK at the moment, right?
There is, and I can't take it.
She can't. So if you've had
Oh,
cancer,
you can't take it anyway.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you had cancer, you can't do it.
Yeah, I had a very sort of rare type of cancer that's an hormonal cancer, and so I have to look at alternatives. For me, cold water therapy works really well. So that's something for everybody to try.
What's cold water? Yeah.
So if you've looked at the Wim Hof, so so if you know anything about that, it's a really good thing to try.
Starting your day with an ice cold shower or ice bath.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I mean, I did cryotherapy, but that's not affordable for everybody. But everybody can have a cold shower.
Yeah.
It helps with the mood as well, the joints, because I struggle really with that. So yeah, cold water therapy works for me.
There is a shortage of HRT though.
There is a massive, but try alternatives. But I think before you start HRT, and certainly for the younger woman that's preparing, try the alternatives, and then obviously if it's not working, and you can take.
We found walking.
Walking's really great as well. Fantastic.
I used to say things like, "Come on, I'll take my wife for a walk." If I could see her mood, and in the end, she used to say to me, "Come and walk your wife."
Yeah.
The environment, fresh air changes how you feel.
Yeah,
for sure. What I find interesting about all of this is that the fact that this two-part special has come off the back of Real Housewives of Cheshire. I mean, you joined the series last series.
This is my fifth one.
Fifth one.
Yes.
I'm out of date. Okay, so this is your fifth one, but I mean, you know, obviously this has helped things get a bit fruity on the show if you're all sort of going through the menopause together.
Well, a little bit, yeah. And I think everybody's journeys have been so different with it.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got, and I think that's why they've used us. You've got women that are not in the menopause at all. So Sheena's not started at all.
Okay.
You've got like people like Rachel that are just beginning perimenopausal, so you see that journey. You've got Seema and Sandeep that have a more emotional journey, I think, in this, and they talk quite openly, don't they, about, you know, their very private life. And us, we've kind of got the humour, and I'm obviously through the menopause.
Is it more challenging to try how do you have that conversation with your employer about the menopause? Because you can have it with your husband, you've got an intimate relationship. But with your employer and with people at work, how does that help? Because it really affects women's careers.
It does, yeah. And as an employer, I obviously work with predominantly men, I have to say. So for the females that work with me, that are going through these symptoms, it's making sure you can educate. And I think that yes, it is difficult, but if there was more education and we did these workshops,
There is some workshops available, isn't there?
Yeah, the workshop that we do on the show would actually, be great in a sort of an employee.
We learned a lot as men in that workshop.
Yeah. And it was, so it's just being open and it just becoming the norm, like we would talk about cancer or we would talk about, mental health that we talk about now, because equally mental health and menopause kind of do go hand in hand.
Sure.
So many women, as we talked about earlier, leave their jobs, they do because they can't cope. Brain fog, it will happen. You'll be talking, it happens to me all the time.
Yeah.
But, I want people that work for me to feel comfortable that, obviously not a surgeon, because probably you would have to take some time out, but if we're having a meeting and all of a sudden the fog comes over, and it does, and you literally go blank, it's okay to say, do you know what, I just need a moment.
Yeah.
And go again. It doesn't make you inadequate. It's just a moment.
What about joining the cast? I mean, it's 5 seasons in, but I just want to ask you about life on the show and life in front of the camera and opening, your life up to all of the sort of celebrities. Well, you're already in the public eye, obviously, but, the scrutiny from reality TV. Have you found it a positive thing? Because, of course, Dawn Ward, we know, left and towards the end didn't enjoy all of that scrutiny.
I think it depends on whether you're the man or the woman in the show.
Yeah.
What your personality.
You're having a great time.
I love it. I love it. I think it's complete fun. People can say what they want to me on social media. I actually prefer the hate makes me laugh. But I'm one of those people that probably am a bit bulletproof and nothing
Did
offends
you grew up in...
I grew up around
Your
it.
dad was a Man United...
Yeah, so I grew up, but there was no social media. But that side, I kind of think of, well, people have got to find me, write me a message. I'll spend a lot of time in their heads if they're sending me that, and I'll repost it, where I think for the women on the show, it's more intense. We get the good bits, the men.
Yeah. I look, at the end of the day, you know what you're going into. Do you totally? Not always. And there are ups and downs. I mean, every series, by the end of it, you kind of do need a bit of time out and a little bit of space.
The team are great, though, aren't they?
It's a great... And, I've worked a lot through COVID Most of mine has been done through COVID. So this has been really the first one that has been different for me. So, yeah, I've enjoyed it. Look, you take everything positive from everything you do. But, yeah, you have got the cameras, you know, looking at everything. We have a row on the show. This is the first time.
Oh, really?
She drives off and leaves me. I was 30 miles away.
So we actually do have an argument, but you know what?
That was real.
People argue, they really do. So I'm OK with that, and we made up.
That was your fault.
Did they know that was a real row when it was happening?
Yeah, because we don't scripted. So, yeah, and then she was in the wrong, actually. So she apologised for the first time ever, and it's on camera, which is great.
Can't blame that on the
I've just got it on repeat now. Like a meme.
It is, you know, at the end of the day, I think for all reality TV, you know, you are opening yourself up.
Yeah, you are opening yourself up.
But it's a balance.
And that's your choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're using it to talk about something that's really important.
Yeah, and it's amazing that we get to do this. And it's one of the reasons I came back this series, that I got to do something so amazing. And I met some great people as well.
And I think we're lucky on our show, and I say it to everyone, a lot of the other reality shows, they're younger. We've all got lives, or had lives, or businesses, or marriages.
A bit of experience,
A bit more experience, and it isn't priority. You know, we're not living on it. So when you're in the younger ones, there's a lot more pressure, I think.
Yeah. I think you're just having a laugh.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Nicole and Joe Seeley, really good to meet you both. Thank you very much indeed. And a reminder, if you do want to watch that show, it's on ITVB at 9 o'clock this evening, and it's called Real Housewives and the Menopause. Am I right thinking?
Correct.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Coming up, it is just coming up to 8:30. We're going to go through the Monday papers, but first, before all that, it's the all-important weather.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Welcome back. It's 8:32. Time to take you through the latest headlines this hour. And the Met Police has been found to have strip-searched hundreds of young people over a 2-year period, a figure that's been condemned by children's charities. Scotland Yard data shows 650 10 to 17-year-olds were subjected to strip searches between 2018 and 2020, and more than 95% were boys.
There's a new warning that NHS dentistry is at its tipping point after years of neglect that has been made worse by the pressures of the pandemic. The British Dental Association found the majority of NHS dental practices in the UK can't offer appointments to new adult patients. 91% of practices in England could not accept new patients, with the number rising to as high as 98% in the South West, North West and Yorkshire.
School grades are expected to drop this summer and next after students sat exams for the first time since 2019. The government says few schools and colleges will get better results than in 2021 when teachers awarded grades due to the pandemic. Education Minister Will Quince said the return to sitting examinations would make sure grades maintained their value. Let's go through the papers now. We're joined by Christopher Biggins and Emily Carver for one last look at your Monday morning newspapers. And Emily, you've chosen the Eye to start with, and I'm really glad you've chosen this because this is the crunch time looming, the 6-month stay, and there was a budget allocated to families that were hosting refugees. What happens after this 6 months is up?
Yeah, so this is very interesting because, of course, the refugee scheme was at the top of the agenda for weeks a few months ago, and it's already the 6-month stay limit is looming. So people were told who took in refugees that after 6 months, they only had to commit to 6 months. So essentially, there may be, among those refugees, there may be some who've managed to find jobs and managed to create a life here. There will be some that have gone home or gone elsewhere. But there will be some that are in a difficult situation. They may become homeless. They may have fallen out with the family that they were staying with for whatever reason, differences of lifestyle. A lot of these people who have come over from Ukraine are obviously suffering from depression, PTSD, from all the trauma that they've gone through, having to leave home so quickly. So essentially, it falls on the councils to find money to put these people up if they're, what's the word? What do you call the families that look after them? They're host families. If they can no longer keep them. So it's crunch time, according to the Eye, and I guess I don't know what proportion of these people will have essentially nowhere to go now.
So I assume councils are saying, look, we need to find homes for these people. Have you got any money?
Well,
that's what they're asking.
Well, exactly. The councils will need more money. The government's saying that councils have a duty to ensure families are not left without a roof over their head. I don't have what the councils have said in response, but I imagine that's what they're saying. Well, give us some money then.
Yeah.
Well, anecdotally, I've heard through friends who've hosted a family and have had this sort of situation whereby, it's terrible to quote this example, but the Ukrainian was of Chechen origin and perhaps wasn't, naturally what you assumed was going to be a sort of grateful recipient of hospitality. They were more sort of, yes, there were controversies in all of that. And they went to the council and they said, well, what do we do? And the council said, oh, well, I'm afraid there's a waiting list, 5 years. If you want housing in the UK, you have to wait alongside British people as well. Or you go into the accommodation that's being provided for asylum seekers, which they also didn't want to go into.
So they've had people in their home who they can't stand. They don't get on with at all. So what have they done? Just had them?
Well, I think they've a neighbour who was already hosting another family have taken in another.
Wow.
But I mean, there are stories like this to be dug up, I think, and I think as the 6 months comes to an end, I think it's something we're going to hear more about.
It's a very tricky situation, isn't it? You take the responsibility of taking a family and then you don't get on. It must be a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then other stories, of course, it's a wonderful situation, but that's life, isn't it?
Yeah.
The reality of these things isn't always what you thought they were going to be.
Yeah, it is a difficult one. Christopher, you're an Archers fan, are you?
Well, I am an Archers fan, and I was. I'm not going to name any names because they're lovely people, but two of your researchers had no idea what I was talking about.
To be fair, I know the programme. I couldn't name anyone who's ever been in it. I don't know.
Well, it is a classic. I mean, it is an institution.
Yes.
Anyway, enough of that. The Queen of Ambridge. I thought this was funny enough, an article about our Queen, because she looks not dissimilar on the front page of the Daily Telegraph today.
Yeah.
And she's the Queen of Ambridge, and she signs off. She's leaving the show at 103 years old.
Yeah.
She's been in it for 71 years. Her name is June Spencer, and she plays Peggy Woolley. And it's fantastic that she's had this job for that long. I mean, it's wonderful.
Have you ever been on The Archers?
No, I wouldn't.
Not even a cameo?
No, did I do a cameo? No, I don't think I have. I would love to do a cameo. I think it's a wonderful series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely brilliant. And it's a classic.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, people absolutely, if they can't listen to it at the time, they record it, I mean, it's one of those sort of shows. I mean,
has it gone a bit woke Some people saying it's on turn.
I haven't listened to it recently, but that would be awful if it has got work. But anyway,
It probably has.
It probably has. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, but still, I mean, still working at 103. I mean, that is
a bit much, isn't it?
Whatever you do, whatever you listen to, whether you know the Archers or not, you know, maximum respect to June Spencer.
Yes, I think the Queen should give her an honour.
Yeah. Indeed.
I'm always so glad that Christopher is here because I never know these references to these shows. I've never watched it. No.
You can't watch it.
I'm like the
on
researchers.
Radio. Number one, it's on the radio. So you can't watch it. Fallen at the first hurdle there. It's on Radio 4.
I always end up having a blonde moment on breakfast.
Oh, brilliant. Moving swiftly on, back into your comfort zone, Emily. Advance wages, talking about fiscal matters. Page 34 of the Times.
Yes. So I've done this before. I think with my Monzo account, which is one of these digital-only banks, you can get your pay, your salary, you can just ask for it the day before. But I think there are services that actually allow you to get your pay more in advance of that. And the idea is that you could essentially budget a little more by having your pay come through these digital accounts, maybe weekly or bi-weekly, because the difficulty is if it's just getting it a few days early, it still has to last the same amount of time. So you're not really getting any benefit. But I think there are services available for people. For example, one is called Revolut, which is an online bank, where you can get your advance payments.
We're going to take a pause.
Oh, sorry.
Brandon Lewis is standing by, but we will come back to you if we have time after this interview. Thank you for now, Emily and Christopher Biggins. Supporters of Liz Truss backtracking on recent comments that she would reject handouts to people struggling with the cost of living crisis, while her allies, like Penny Mordaunt, claimed she was making a general point and was not ruling out additional aid. Her leadership rival, Rishi Sunak, said the Foreign Secretary needs to get real on the public's problems. Ooh. Well, joining us now is one of Liz Truss's supporters, the former Northern Ireland Secretary and current MP for Great Yarmouth, Brandon Lewis. Very good morning to you. Is this a U-turn? Sounds like it might be.
Good morning. No, not at all. Look, Liz has been leading the way on calling for reductions in tax and putting more money in people's pockets for some time, with her opponents saying that's fairy tale stuff, when actually we need to help people. We need to get on with doing that now, not waiting a few years to see what we can do. And Liz has been leading the way on that and continues to be in the space that she wants to have an emergency budget, get money in people's pockets now to deal with the challenges that people are seeing.
How do tax cuts help people who don't pay tax?
Well, obviously, tax cuts help people who are paying tax. What we also need to do is make sure that we've got a growing economy to create more jobs for more people to get to a level where they're paying tax, and also to make sure that we are delivering on our energy security, to make sure that we're doing everything we can in the medium and long term as well as the short term to bring down, not just create energy security, but to bring down those prices. Now, that's a global challenge we're seeing both with energy challenges and prices and inflation, partly because of the war in Ukraine, but we can do more ourselves domestically as well to protect that security by seeing investment in that sector in the short and medium term.
Yeah, no, I think no one would doubt that growing the economy and energy security is really important, and that needs to happen. But that's going to take time, and in a very short space of time, we're going to see energy bills soaring, and people are really going to need help with that. So why are we not seeing more comprehensive policy from Liz Truss when it comes to helping those people directly, especially those that don't pay tax?
Well, because I think Liz has outlined she wants to do this the right way. She wants to move quickly if she becomes Prime Minister. She wants to have an emergency budget, and obviously an emergency budget would deal with these very issues. What she's setting out at the moment is that overarching set of principles that will guide her as Prime Minister and whoever her Chancellor is, which is to have a low tax economy, so more money for people who are paying tax to be able to spend in the way they see fit to deal with these challenges, but also to have one that's based on a high wage and high productivity economy. So we're seeing more jobs created for people that even in the short term can make quite a big difference to the security that people have in their homes.
Do you worry that too much of the discussion during this leadership debate has been about taxation, when the general public, the people who Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak will be Prime Minister for, appear not to be anywhere near as concerned? I'm referring to the latest polling that the Times are running today, combined with YouGov. 64% of voters, so this isn't the Tory membership, think the Prime Minister should focus on inflation. 17% of them think that you should focus on tax cuts. Do you think, therefore, that you're a little bit out of step with what everyone else is worrying about?
Well, as I say, I think Liz has led the way in trying to talk about how we make sure we're getting more money in people's pockets. But look, it's a very fair challenge. The reality is these things are not mutually exclusive. What we want to do and what Liz Truss wants to do is get on top of and deal with the challenges that we're seeing with inflation, get inflation under control, but also be putting more money in people's pockets. Some people are arguing that you can do one or the other. It's just not the case. Actually, you can look at how you deal with inflation whilst also keeping a low tax economy.
But doing both, putting money in people's pockets and cutting taxes, it's going to require more borrowing, right?
Well, not necessarily. So first of all, what Liz has already outlined is within the budget that is already set out from the Treasury that we have. But also some of these things. So for example, one of the things I can remember being on media talking about a few years ago was as we were reducing corporation tax, which of course is the one tax that companies can do a direct comparison around the world when they're looking to invest and grow internationally in what is now a faster and faster growing global economy. When they're looking at that, that's something that means that they invest more. So you can reduce the tax percentage, but actually see the take go up because more companies invest, more companies grow, they make more profit, and therefore they ultimately pay more tax and employ more people. So this is this point. If you get these things right, you can see growth, you can see more money in people's pockets whilst reducing tax and have the money to invest in public services. That's what we want to achieve. That comes from a high productivity, high growth, low tax economy, and that's what Liz wants to deliver.
Just finally, a thought about the comments from former Prime Minister Gordon Brown on the front of one of the tabloids this morning, talking about recalling Parliament, possibly calling for daily COBRA meetings to tackle the cost of living. I mean, a lot of people would say, look, you know, he's from a different party, don't expect you to accept a lot of what he says. But there is a fear, isn't there, with 4 more weeks of this leadership debate going on and 2 potentially exhausted leaders taking the reins on the 6th of September, that eyes are off the ball and you know, this isn't perhaps the best way to govern.
Oh, well, look, a couple of things I'll say to that. One is the current Chancellor I know is focused on this, and even while he's been out of the country has been having daily meetings and conversations with his team around what we're doing. But also I can assure you when you talk about the energy levels of Liz Truss are absolutely bubbling high. She is very determined to carry on the work for people, both as Foreign Secretary, also through this leadership campaign. And I've known Liz a very long time. I've seen the amount of energy she's got. If she's made Prime Minister in September, she will hit the ground running. She'll have all the energy she needs to deliver for people across the United Kingdom.
Brandon Lewis, really good to get your thoughts. Thank you very much indeed, Brandon Lewis, of course, from the Liz Truss campaign. Trust for leader, I believe.
Yeah, indeed. GBviews at gbnews.uk if you want to feed back to us on what Brandon Lewis had to say there. And by the way, I'm going to be in Lee in Greater Manchester tomorrow. If you're watching in Lee and you want to let us know what you think, do get in touch with the programme, GBviews.
Yeah, we're doing a special programme tomorrow evening with Liz Truss. She's being joined by Alistair Stewart in that...
Wednesday evening.
Oh, it's Wednesday.
Wednesday evening, yeah, the People's Forum.
I thought it was tomorrow. Getting carried away. So anyway, that's a big coup for us. We're excited about that here on GB News.
Yeah, it is 8:46. Should we continue the paper review?
Yeah, just thoughts, both of you, on what we heard from Brandon Lewis there. Actually, the comment at the end when he said the current Chancellor, I thought that was rather ominous.
Yeah.
Suggests possible looming changes to the cabinet. But anyway, I didn't want to drill into that too much. Emily, initial thoughts?
Well, it's quite interesting that he's having to very much make the case for cutting taxes, which is something that you'd presume most people would be in favour of. But it just shows how much that message that we can't afford tax cuts is really cutting through to people, whether it's wrong or right. The economists that back Liz Truss would argue very strongly that we do have space for tax cuts, and that's the way to grow the economy. But I think Rishi Sunak's line that, you know, hold your horses, is actually, you know, people are listening to that.
Yeah, well, it shows, Christopher, isn't it, that there's what the grassroots members of the Conservative Party feel, and then there's the rest of the country.
Absolutely.
2 different things.
Totally different things. I mean, you know, that's why I don't understand why they aren't saying today this is the new Prime Minister, because it's only about, is it hundreds of people? It's not thousands.
160,000.
200,000. They don't know the exact.
Yeah, but it's not a huge amount, is it, to make this decision?
It's less than, was it 0.1% of the electorate?
We're not asking millions of people to make the decision, which is a problem, would be a problem. But I think, you know, they should be doing something now about it. Of course, he's fighting for Liz's court. You know, obviously, you know, I mean, he's providing all the things that we want to hear or don't want to hear. I mean, it's interesting. I just wish they'd get on with it and announce whoever it's going to be.
We should point out we've got the Ready for Rishi chair of his campaign coming on just after 9 o'clock. That's Oliver Dowden. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines in the papers. Christopher, you want to talk about bank... I don't want calling you Christopher. Feels very formal.
I was calling you Christopher.
You've chosen to talk about bank fraud. 20% of us ignore the warnings, and I must say, it's so easy to do, isn't it? It feels like constantly being told, be careful.
And interestingly enough, you say us, I mean, 29% are men.
Oh.
Which is very, and 14% are yourselves, or women. And so, but I have online banking. Do we all have online banking?
Yes.
And I'm always checking to see what's happening, whether the money's come in or gone out or what have you, and is there anything wrong? And I think online banking is great. And I think there are problems because, fraud is so high at the moment, especially in banking. I mean, I've had some friends who've sued banks, really big banks, for a lot of money, and bank managers have gone to prison.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to be very, 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 very careful nowadays.
Yeah.
Because not even banks are as safe as they make out.
Wow.
I also find that cash is very odd now. Nobody seems to take... I went the other day to the theatre, and I went to buy some drinks in the interval, and they said, oh, no cash.
Yeah.
What do you mean no cash? I mean, it's ridiculous. No cash.
Whereas my kids have gone on a sports camp this week and they have a tuck shop. And in the tips, I was packing their bags last night and we were told swimming stuff, this and the other. And then you're supposed to give them cash for the tuck shop. And I was like, I don't have any cash. My poor kids are going to be the ones... They're not
going to have any trees.
They're going to have to go and sort that out.
I wish I'd been there. I always carry cash.
Yeah.
Good to know. Talking of pocket money, Emily, in The Guardian, page 15, apparently it's down.
Yes, all these kids won't have any pocket money to spend in the tuck shop anyway. Apparently, the average weekly pocket money given to under-16s has fallen to £4.99 this year from £6.48.
Sorry, how much?
So the average under-16 gets £4.99 a week pocket money.
Right.
So a fiver.
Okay.
But in 2021, last year, it was £6.48. That's quite the tumble.
Wow.
And apparently, a third of parents are cutting back on pocket money, which is fair enough, I think.
Yeah. They're going to have to get a job.
Yeah, they'll have to get a job. Well, you can't get jobs now, can you, if you're under 16?
Can you?
Well, you probably can't.
A bit of window cleaning or...
Little paper round.
Little bit of dog...
I was going to say paper round. How long is that going to take?
Dog sitting.
Dog sitting,
which is very profitable.
I think children should do things. I think it makes them think. I mean, nowadays they advertise, don't they, credit cards for children, which are governed by the parents.
Do they?
Oh, yes, they're governed by the parents, and they have sort of bright colours and TV specials on the front, So the kids have, but they can't go mad with them because then if they suddenly spend to buy a car, the parents are notified that they've put in for a £25,000 Mini.
Teaching children the concept of money when it's digital is really difficult.
Yeah,
it's hard enough as adult. I don't know. I'd speak for myself anyway to keep a grasp of what you're spending. But if children can't feel and count and see money, that's
a very good point. I hadn't thought about that because it used to be obviously, here's £5, make that last the day or the week in this case.
Yeah, but you'd also and it also helped them with teaching them kind of basic arithmetic as well. Yeah, here's £2. Here's £2. You had to get. You can't do that when you just tap a card.
Yeah, I think it teaches gratitude as well. It's all part of appreciating things instead of my kids saying, "Can we just get another one?" When it's broken. No, you broke it. You're keeping it.
Yeah.
It's all going to the dogs.
Their dogs. Have we got time for this story? In the Mail, Biggins. This is one we touched on in the last hour.
We did. Hospitals.
Huge problem.
Well, hospitals short of epidurals for mothers-to-be. I was talking to your lovely doctor earlier that was on the programme, and I was suggesting that we actually pay a sort of a small amount, because private insurance is hugely expensive and ridiculous. But if we went to the National Health and we wanted an epidural, wouldn't it be nice if we could pay £100 for you to have your baby with an epidural, and that would be acceptable? I mean, because there's obviously a problem with the NHS once again that it's costing too much money. And so women having babies are being deprived of this life-saving jab or whatever it is, I mean, to have an epidural.
So is that the problem? It's cost that means that there's a short supply, or is it just supply chain problems with...
No, I think it's both. I think cost and supplies of the kits and painkiller are so low that some NHS hospitals are denying women their right. But I mean, I think that perhaps, you know, if they had the money, they could get it.
Yeah.
I mean, do most women expect an epidural when they have a child?
I don't think so.
You're definitely given the option. Yeah.
Okay.
And it is a wonderful option because, like you said earlier, you can control how much painkiller you.
I was allowed two squeezes of the button per hour. So I was in labour for 27 hours.
27. Oh,
so I got through quite a lot.
And did they actually restrict it to 2 per hour?
Yeah.
And they were watching you?
Well, no, it clicked off.
Oh, it does.
It was self-regulating, but you couldn't have more than 2 because I think. Well, without getting too much of the detail of labour, if you have too much of the pain, and then you have to start pushing at some point in the future, it's too hard to wear off in time. I'm no doctor, but that's my understanding of it. Anyway, I loved it. It was glorious. Yeah. So I really hope that Steve Barclay sorts this out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I wonder how fast he'd sort it out if it was a woman. Just saying. If it was a woman health secretary. Anyway.
Right. Biggins, Emily, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. See you again soon. Time now, though, for On Your Doorstep.
Is in Suffolk this morning. Morning, Ed. Where are you now? Who are you with? What's happening? Give us the latest.
Good morning. I'm all over the place today. Right now, I'm in Farnham St Martin, which is a lovely village in Suffolk, and I've come to the Farnham St Martin's Parish Church because the church is the centre of the community in many aspects, and I'm joined by 2 of the church wardens, Beryl and David. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. Good morning. Yes, nice to see you in the sunshine.
Well, it's a beautiful morning. Now, can you tell me, I understand this church is a very thriving church. What kind of things do you do here?
Oh, many things. We have book sales. We've got one next month. We have all sorts of events that we have fish and chips and quizzes and weddings, funerals and baptisms, of course.
Well, I noticed that you've got a lot of weddings that happen here and even more baptisms. Now, I understand that, you know, you're a hub for the community, you're a pillar of the local community. What kind of challenges are you facing at the moment?
Well, with the pandemic, we had to close down like many places, but people are coming back to church, we're very pleased to see, and we do a weekly service either on a Sunday or a Tuesday to fit in with people's movements.
Well, it's good that you're open every day and the public can come down and visit the church whenever. The church is, how old is it now, 700 years?
It's nearly 700 years, built in 1330. A tower was added in 1425 and a south aisle extension in memory of a former rector was built in 1870. So a lot of history to what's known as a heritage building in the village.
Well, it's a beautiful church and it's an exciting church because you've got a lively congregation, you're growing in numbers, people are coming back after the pandemic, and you know, I understand that you're trying to restore the church bells. Can you tell me a bit about that, Beryl?
Well, yes, we are applying for grants. We are raising funds. As I say, we have events. We had a big event just recently, a wedding festival where people donated, 42 different people donated their wedding dresses, and it was a great success.
That is wonderful. Now, David, you were telling me about, it's not coffee and confession, what is it called?
Coffee and fellowship. We have a good chat after every service and we catch up with people's present situation, sometimes not always easy for them.
Well, that sounds like a perfect time to hand back. Let's grab ourselves a coffee and some biscuits and we'll let the studio get on with their day.
Oh, thank you very much. And lovely to see that and hear people are coming back to church as well. It's sort of backbone of Britain. It's lovely stuff. Thank you very much.
Right, it is 8:57. Coming up, Dom Littlewood joins us to share the dangers of dodgy deals and rogue tradesmen and how to avoid them after this.
Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board. Feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine. Feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 degrees Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
The Tory leadership race continues to heat up with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak clashing over how best to handle the cost of living crisis. And now, a former PM is having his say.
Good morning, it's just after 9 o'clock. It's Monday, the 8th of August. A very warm welcome to breakfast on GB News with Paul Hawkins and Isabel Webster. Here's what's leading our news this morning.
Liz Truss has pledged to immediately cut taxes if she wins the race for number 10 and plans to tackle the cost of living crisis by reversing the national insurance rise. Meanwhile, the former Chancellor is calling for inflation to be brought under control before taxes are cut and has pledged billions more to help struggling families.
Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown's called for a Cobra Emergency Committee to sit in permanent session to try and tackle the emergency of the cost of living crisis.
The one and only Dom Littlewood will join us shortly. Dom has been fighting rogue traders and scammers for decades. He'll be giving us tips and tricks to make sure your money is safe.
And we'll be on your doorstep this morning, speaking to you about the issues that matter the most.
Now, remember, you can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can drop us a tweet at gbnews.
And, of course, you can subscribe to the GB News news channel on YouTube to get all the latest on the big stories everyone's talking about. Lots of you have been getting in touch this morning on all of the subjects of the day, really. On the Conservative Party leadership contest, Mohammed says, can we have more control over where our taxes are spent? We can tick boxes to say whether we want our money to go to which cause. Less government wastage on useless causes we do not agree with. It would give the taxpayers more control. Brexit meant controlling our borders.
Yeah, Guy says, I still find it hard to believe that after the tax avoidance and multi-company liquidations of Rishi Sunak's wife spearheaded, directly costing this government millions, how can this man ever be considered for even a menial government department, never mind Prime Minister? We'll be talking to Oliver Dowden, Rishi Sunak's supporter, in just a moment.
And Linda in Leeds has got in touch as well. Thank you, Linda. How do we have a cost of living crisis when we're paying £5 million a day to house illegal immigrants? I want my tax to go to our people, not the illegal smuggling. The smugglers mostly think it's like taking candy from a baby, and Britain is soft and stupid.
Yeah, let's talk then about the Conservative leadership race. With less than 4 weeks left in the race to number 10, former Chancellor Rishi Sunak and the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss have intensified campaign efforts and hustings as they remain at odds over how to deal with the economy.
Well, let's speak to one Tory MP who's ready for Rishi, and that's the former Culture Secretary, Oliver Dowden. Very good morning to you. I should say you are spearheading Rishi Sunak's campaign. And look, your own camp admitting that whilst you were the clear favourite with MPs, you've had a lot of ground to make up when it comes to the membership. How is that going for you?
Hi, good morning. Well, actually, I'm finding, as we go up and down the country, having conversations with members, they're hearing Rishi's message. And I think particularly after the very grave warnings that we heard from the Bank of England yesterday about the future direction of the economy, about the scourge of inflation, they understand that Rishi Sunak is somebody with the skills and the experience to deal with this. And crucially, they understand the first thing we've got to do is crush this scourge of inflation. That is at the root cause of all of this. And that's why, for example, Rishi was endorsed just last week by Nigel Lawson, one of the best chancellors we've ever had, who served under Margaret Thatcher, who understands the need to crush inflation first because it makes everyone poorer, and then to cut people's taxes for the long term.
Endorsements are great, and there's a YouGov poll out today saying that the majority of voters suggest the majority of voters feel that same way, but none of it's any good because amongst Conservative grassroots members on all the polls, he's way behind at the moment, and they don't feel the same way.
Well, look, I've been around politics for quite a long time, as I'm sure both of you have, and we can all remember what polls have said at different times. We all remember before the 2015 election, that was written off for the Conservatives. Before the Brexit referendum, that was written off for Brexit. I've learned that the key thing you have to do is to make sure you get out there, make your arguments to people. And I, both as a constituency MP and former chairman of the Conservative Party, I know that Conservative Party members are sensible people, they're patriots, and they care passionately about this country. But also lots of them have long memories. And they remember how bad it is when inflation gets out of control. Inflation makes absolutely everyone poorer. If you're a pensioner, if you're on a fixed income off your savings, or if you're earning, year after year you get poorer. If you've got inflation at over 13%, and that happens year after year, within a couple of years your savings have reduced in value by a third, your pension's reduced in value by a third. That's why it's crucial that we control that first, and people are responding to that from Rishi.
I was reading over the weekend that, in spite of what you're saying, he has this uphill struggle, perhaps because of his own personal wealth. Perhaps people just perceive him to be out of touch with a lot of those issues that ordinary people are facing. He's having to work even harder with the membership, turning up sometimes 2 hours before hustings, where Liz Truss has perhaps helicoptered in at the last minute. I was reading he's met some 7,000 people. He's been to 18 solo events. But all of that hard work undermined by the leaking of the video that came out on Friday when he was overheard saying that he was trying to work out the formula within the Treasury that automatically diverted money towards those most in need in urban areas. And he's been described as a reverse Robin Hood, which can't be a good look when he's trying to argue on behalf of those who need his help.
Well, first of all, I'd say it's a great attribute of Rishi's that he's incredibly hard-working. I've had the honour of working with 3 previous Prime Ministers and many people at the top of government. I've never known someone work so hard, and I think you'll see from Rishi, if he is elected leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister, somebody who brings that hard work, passion, commitment to the nation. As for that video, I think he was actually making an important point. And under the Labour years, money was just shoveled into inner city areas on the basis those were deprived, without understanding there is deprivation across our country. Just take my own constituency of Hertsmere. It has some very wealthy areas, but also it has a ward that is in the top 10% of poorest wards in the whole country. Deprivation exists outside the big northern cities, and I think that's the point that Rishi was making, that we need to make sure that we get those resources to where the actual need is and not accept formulas that we inherited from Labour.
But he was talking to members in Tunbridge Wells, which there may be some poor areas of Tunbridge Wells, I don't know for certain, but it's not exactly an area that you think of when you talk about levelling up.
Well, that's an interesting point, isn't it? And it's a similar thing with my constituency. If you get into technicalities of my constituency, there's a ward called Aldenham East, which has the lowest level of deprivation in the entire country. Right next door to it is a ward called Cowley Hill, which is in the top 10% of deprivation. Now, we as Conservatives understand that we need to make sure that we get those resources to where they're needed. And for too long, Labour had taken a blanket approach and ignored those areas of deprivation in London, in the wider southeast of England and other suburban areas. It's really important that we help all parts of the country if we're committed to levelling up.
Well, there you go, Olive. I was just wondering, obviously the big thing that's going to be in his inbox if he does become PM is the cost of living crisis and helping really poor families especially, but really everyone with energy bills. How will he do that? Is he going to put his hand in his pocket and dish out a lot more money again, as he has done in the past?
Well, I think I would say judge Rishi Sunak by his record. When we were faced with that terrible shutdown at the height of COVID, tens of millions of people could have lost their jobs. Within days, he came up with the furlough scheme, which saved literally over 10 million jobs. Earlier this year, when we saw a sense of where energy prices might go, he introduced a package of measures: £300 for pensioners, £400 for everyone else, £1,200 for the most deprived people, to get them through this difficult period. And this kind of scale of energy bill increases that we're facing means we need that kind of bold action. And if you look at the removal of the increase in national insurance contributions that's been proposed by Liz Truss, for somebody working full-time on the national living wage, that's worth less than 60 quid. It's okay if you're the future Prime Minister, then whoever that person is will benefit to the tune of £1,800. We need to be real about the scale of this crisis and where the help is needed, and he'll make sure that we help everyone, and particularly focus on those people that will struggle to heat and eat.
Will he introduce help then for people that's on the scale of a furlough-style programme, because this is going to continue all the way through next year and into the year after?
Well, I think you saw earlier this year when the expectation was that bills would go up by about £1,200 in October. He announced that range of measures to help people. Now that we know those bills are going to go up further, I'm confident that he will have further interventions to help people, and indeed he's already made clear that we'll remove the VAT for domestic energy bills. That's worth about £200. Of course, we need to go further, but let's wait and see exactly what the level of bills is going to be. We'll find out shortly how much the cap will go up in October.
Okay, Oliver Dowden, MP, chairing the Ready for Rishi campaign. Thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Interesting. GB Views at gbnews.uk. It is 11 minutes past 9. Our next guest has been fighting rogue traders and scammers for decades. Most famously, he has been co-presenting Cowboy Builders on Channel 4.
It is, of course, Dom Littlewood, and he joins us now. Very good morning to you, Dom. The issue of rogue traders, I suppose it becomes more of a thing, doesn't it, in the summer, where a lot of people take advantage of the good weather and get a few jobs done whilst they can. But those rogue traders, those cowboys, they're out and about coining in where they can.
Certainly, I mean, the good thing is, Isabel, that we are, as a nation, getting wiser to this. So, we're not getting caught out as often. But in the summer, you've got the kids off, you're busy, you're trying to work out what to do for the day. We're thinking about doing jobs on the homes and the gardens, etc. And we can let our guard down. And we're not just talking here about the knock on the doors from the road traders. I mean, most of us are pretty aware of what to look out for there. But there's an awful lot of people now that are actually getting scammed via emails. And I'm working with Nationwide at the moment. We've been doing some research. There's more than half of people who've had a knock on the door. OK, we're sort of getting on top of that. We're getting a bit wiser. But 18% of people have received an email for work, an invoice for work. 35% of people didn't realise that fraudsters can actually intercept some emails. So the message I'm trying to say to people is be vigilant. Due diligence is something to be careful of and just put into place. And if you're not sure about something, just take 5. Ask a second opinion. Ask your bank, your building society, your neighbour, your son, your daughter, whoever. Be careful about what you're clicking on in emails. There's some very obvious things here, but we just need a little wake-up call every now and again.
Yeah, when you say due diligence, what kind of due diligence?
Well, for starters, if you get an email through, a lot of people don't realise, just hover the mouse over the email address. Now, if it's a genuine company that own their own site, for example, let's say hypothetically Amazon.com, that's going to be fine. If the letters have been changed slightly, so it might say number 1, Amazon, or customer, Amazon.co, those sorts of things. I'm only using Amazon as a guide, of course. If the email's been slightly altered, that can take you to a completely different website. If there's anything where you need to link, click on a hyperlink. For example, if someone says we tried to leave a parcel today, you click on the link to redirect it. Take 5, look at it. And when you look at that address at the top, quite often they'll come up and they'll have a whole load of letters and numbers and all a load of garbled gunk. That's almost certainly a spam email which you need to avoid. So don't click on hyperlinks. Look at the address. Be very cautious. If the email has been hacked, it's rare, but it does happen. Even someone you know and you trust who you're expecting an invoice from, let's say a tradesman, might have had that email hacked. So double check the account details. If you're expecting it from a builder, let's say, for example, ring them up and say, just want to double check, Steve, is this the correct account number? Blah, blah, blah. And if he says no, then you've saved yourself a lot of problems. If you're not sure, ask your bank, ask your building society for their opinion.
When it comes to tradesmen, have there been sort of a successful series of websites that are sort of built on recommendations, or are they open to fraud as well, with people skewing it with in the sort of way that TripAdvisor, you can't necessarily fully trust anymore because restaurants and hotels are writing their own reviews. Are these trusted tradesmen websites, which I would always get a bit of peace of mind if I can go on there and check out somebody, are they worth their salt?
Well, it's a really good point there, Isabel. And in all the years that I was chasing these cowboy builders down, some of them were on these trusted sites.
Right.
So it's a good starting point because at least you've got some sort of recourse if there's a problem. You can contact those sites. You can say this person has not done a very good job. So you've got a little bit of comeback. But I would say to you, for starters, use your gut. Your gut is one of the most powerful tools we've got. It tells you things your head don't. But although they're on one of those websites, that does not guarantee that they're really good. So also do your own due diligence. Check with the references, because sometimes they give references from their wife, girlfriends, mum, dad, next door neighbour, etc. So actually phone these people up or visit them if you can and say, did they do a good job? But also bear in mind, someone might give you a very good reference for, let's say, putting a kitchen sink in, and they might be coming around saying they can do a loft conversion, which is a completely different job. So there's a bit of common sense there. Common sense isn't that common? If someone's a kitchen sink, they're putting a loft conversion in, it doesn't necessarily mean they can do that job.
Doesn't add up. Also, for someone like me, I'm so impatient. If someone says they're available straight away, I'm like, brilliant. But actually, if you're a good tradie, you shouldn't be available straight away, should you? You've got to wait for it.
Yeah. Have you? I know you used to present a programme, Dom, called Don't Get Done, Get Dom, but have you ever been done yourself?
I would say everybody in their life has probably had an experience to learn by. And I would say, yes, I have, but it's rare. And I've pursued it to the end. So if I've ever had someone done something wrong to me, I'll end up taking them to court or getting the money back or sorting it out one way or the other. With the law, of course, the legal side of things. I don't give up. And that's the thing which I've done way before TV. If I've ever been wronged, I've made sure that it's been righted.
Don't mess with Dom.
Yeah.
That's the lesson there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Always lovely to see you. Dom Littlewood, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah. Such a lovely man.
Yeah, wouldn't mess with him though.
No, not at all. Coming up, someone else you wouldn't mess with, the Mirror's Kevin Maguire, here to take us through today's top stories.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We're trying to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
We're joined now by the Associate Editor at the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire, who joins us and will take us through the sort of top stories, top issues of the day. What's been catching your eye, Kevin? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm fascinated by this poll in the front of the Times that 64% of the country think the government should get inflation under control before it tackles tax cuts. Only 17% tax cuts. This is completely different to the Conservative Party leadership race. So there's the 99.8% of us who don't have a vote who's going to be the next Prime Minister, and the 0.2% clearly Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak to some extent.
Although isn't that what Rishi Sunak is saying, though? Get inflation down, then cut taxes.
He shifted, hasn't it? He shifted in recent days because, of course, he attacked her fairy tale economics tax cuts, and he came up with some of his own, and was accused of losing credibility. And then, of course, a couple of days ago, he did say, look, we can kiss goodbye to winning the next election unless we get inflation under control. So he's shifting his position on that. But is it too late internally? Because he's got to win. And I understand why he's obsessed with the 0.2%, because 160,000 people are going to decide who will be PM of a country of 67 million.
Yeah, it's just rail politics.
It is, yeah. I mean, I think it's a system where I think it's flawed, and that if
both ways, to the left and the right, because
it is
been used for the left as well.
No, you're right. But I think a governing party, if it changes prime ministers in the middle of a parliament, I think we should have another general election automatically after 3 or 6 months. So we, the people, can decide who we want to rule us, given the power of whoever is in Downing Street. But that poll is just very, very interesting. Will it affect Conservative Party members? I don't know. I mean, because ballot papers have already landed. I know somebody who got theirs and was showing me it. You know, many people vote immediately. That's what they do. You get your paper and you vote straight
and
away.
that change in the rules has been very disadvantageous, if that's even a word for him.
Yeah, no, you're right, because Sunak hoped that as the debates went on and they went around the country, he could persuade people, because Liz Truss was clearly the front-runner. But then that idea the Conservative Party had, that you could electronically change your vote, well, they had to scupper it because they had security warnings that it could be hacked and the security of it compromised. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. He's running uphill
Yeah, he's running uphill. And what do you think of the argument that he should bow out gracefully if in the next few weeks he continues to be, losing, frankly, and whether or not it would be the right thing to do?
Yeah, it'd be the second time the Conservative Party would have done that, should it happen. I don't think it will, because, of course, in 2016, Andrea Leadsom pulled out just before balloting started, and Theresa May was crowned in a coronation. Didn't work very well, did it? He won't. It's not long to go. I mean, I think there's a problem when the Prime Minister and the Chancellor both go on holiday at the same time in a crisis, and of course the Foreign Secretary, former Chancellor, are involved in this incredible internal spat, and the country looks rudderless, but he won't do that, because he will, like any politician, he will always think tomorrow is a sunnier day. Boris Johnson did when he holed himself up in Downing Street and he was refusing to quit until he lost about 50 ministers and he saw he was going to lose the confidence.
I mean, that was an extraordinary period in time, wasn't it?
And it wasn't so very long ago.
It feels a lifetime ago already, but that was madness. Because we are limited on time, I want to skip on to the story that you've put on the front of your paper about Gordon Brown and his comments on recalling Parliament and having these daily COBRA meetings to deal with the cost of living crisis. And I'm interested whether or not, as a newspaper man, would the same comments from somebody like Sir Keir Starmer have got a front page splash in this way? What is it about Gordon Brown that has meant that he's got this kind of...
Yeah, and the answer to that is no.
No,
I don't think it would. And
right.
Of course, Gordon Brown also made the front of the Observer. He's been all over TV, radio, bulletins, your own. And I think it's because he was there in 2008 during the global financial collapse, and he is. And people in Britain will shout at him. They'll say, "Where's the gold?" And I'm just selling off the gold. He's I know. But he's seen around the world as having steered the whole world out of that financial crisis when banks were collapsing. So he's a good man for a crisis. And you look at the figures he's talking about on energy bills and what this is going to do.
Off the scale.
I mean, it is off the scale, and it's where the government needs a COVID-style response. It came up with 400 billion furloughing, then to protect families, households, businesses from these fuel bills will be a lot less. But unless you do it, there is going to be a real cost of living crisis, and we've seen inflation going to top 13%, the country going into recession for 15 months. This is all up.
But that's why we pushed Oliver Dowden, and he said that even he admitted that what Rishi Sunak's announced so far isn't going to be enough, and there needs to be some sort of furlough-style programme, some sustained programme that goes through next year. Not just
with the furlough scheme. A lot of people, I mean, we saved, obviously, millions of jobs. Again, Oliver Dowden making that point. But we can't afford another COVID-style response to another crisis. Surely people have just got to tighten their belts and do their best.
But we didn't bankrupt ourselves. Well, we would have been if there had been no furlough scheme, which did. I watched Oliver Dowden as you interviewed him, and it saved more than 10 million jobs. Now, you might say the government shouldn't have brought in lockdown restrictions the way it did. I can understand that argument. But once it did, you had to protect the economy, which got hammered, absolutely hammered. And now, if you want to save people from inflation, a terrible financial crisis, you'll have to subsidise energy bills. That's what you'll do. We could nationalise some of the energy companies. We've spent a fortune propping up companies going bust in the energy sector, but you can subsidise bills. Otherwise, we've gone from, in a very short period of time, a cap that was 1,200, then it went to nearly 2,000. It's going to go up to 2,800. It's going to nudge 4,000 under some estimates. And the Brown figures, these are astonishing. Fuel poverty, where you spend more than 10% of your income just on your fuel, 4 in 5 pensioners. Half the country. You go to places like Wales, 60%, 62% people, Scotland, Northern Ireland.
It's going to be a tough winter. Listen, we'll have to leave it there, Kevin, but thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Kevin Maguire there, Associate Editor at the Daily Mirror.
That's it from us. I'll be back at 6 o'clock, joined again by Eamonn Holmes tomorrow morning. Up next, though, Darren McCaffrey will be with you with the briefing. Have a lovely day. Looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking dry again for many areas with plenty of warm sunshine across the country. Let's take a look at the details. Southwest England will be dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue skies across the board. Feeling warm or very warm as temperatures reach around 24 Celsius. Dry across the London area and southeast England this afternoon with prolonged spells of sunshine. Feeling warm as temperatures reach 24 Celsius by midday. South Wales is looking dry and sunny this lunchtime with blue blue skies continuing. After a fresh start for some, temperatures will lift to 23 Celsius. Plenty of sunshine for the Midlands and the end of the Commonwealth Games this lunchtime with blue skies for all. Winds will be light and temperatures will climb towards the low to mid-20s. It's a bright picture this lunchtime across northeast England with plenty of sunny spells there, and it should remain dry with light winds, and this will lift temperatures to around 20 Celsius, so feeling quite warm. Hazy sunshine across southern Scotland this afternoon, but it should stay dry. At midday, temperatures will be around 18 Celsius, which is 64 in Fahrenheit, winds remaining generally light throughout. Dry then for Northern Ireland this lunchtime with plenty of hazy sunshine. Winds will remain light and it'll feel warm with temperatures lifting to around 19 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit. Into this evening then, most places staying dry and warm. Still, some rain in the far north of Scotland. And that's how the weather's shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB